Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, April 17th. My name is Laura Dominguez. I'm Vice Mayor, and I have my colleagues with me, Commissioner Joe Magazine and Commissioner Kristen Rosen-Gonzalez, and also Tanya Bott, one of our commissioners. And thank you, Mark Taxis, Assistant City Manager. Alex Fernandez, Commissioner, is also joining us soon, as is David Suarez, Commissioner, and Rob Rosenwald, our City Attorney. Thank you so much. Chief Deputy City Attorney. And Stephanie Ray Brooks. Thank you very much. Stephanie, do you have some announcements for us?
Hi, yes, we have a couple of announcements. This meeting will be a hybrid meeting, so you could join using Zoom, or you can dial in at 1-312-626-6799. And we will have one item that will be deferred, and that is item number 10, Facilities and Fleet Management. And the item is discussion regarding beach concessions, regulations, and layout to ensure that sufficient areas remain available at all times for public enjoyment of beaches. And that is the only item that I have that's deferred. So we could begin.
Thank you so much.
Madam
So the
Chair.
first item that we're going to
Madam Chair.
call is item number 17.
Could I just have a point of order?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. At the January meeting of the Miami Beach City Commission, Mayor Minor had his item on comprehensive plans for spring break measures. At the time that item was heard, a motion was made to refer to this committee a review of those measures and to send recommendations back to the City Commission. The motion was for it to be heard at the April meeting of the Public Safety and Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee. This is the April meeting of the Public Safety, Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee. And that motion was adopted unanimously by the Miami Beach City Commission. So I need an explanation. I need an explanation why in the April agenda, the directive of the unanimous body was not followed, is not on the agenda, because the purpose was for this committee, you, Madam Chair, as the chair, to take the lead, to formulate recommendations that then could be accepted by the City Commission. And so this is a matter that I take extremely seriously. I find it highly offensive. I find it inexcusable. I find it wrong that the directive of the Miami Beach City Commission to have this discussion here today was ignored and not followed. By whom, why, under whose directive, and under whose authority? I need that answer, and I need it now.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner. Yes, thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. At the last commission meeting, Commissioner Tanya Bott had put a motion to have a special commission meeting about spring break. And since that meeting is tomorrow, to have it twice, I thought would be repetitive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But the item was to have a special meeting. But we did not rescind the directive of the January City Commission. And the point was to make recommendations. Like with every item that the City Commission has that we send to committee, we make recommendations. And then the recommendations are sent to the City Commission to be adopted or not adopted by the City Commission.
Thank you,
thank you,
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Fernandez. City Attorney Rosenwald, any comments on the directive that the committee took to have the special commission meeting tomorrow?
Well, it's certainly within the chair's discretion to set the agenda for this meeting, whether something is referred for a specific time or not. And of course, the chair takes into consideration the will of the body and also scheduling matters, and also perhaps the understanding that the special meeting was actually to perhaps take the place of the neighborhood's discussion, which was my understanding of your understanding.
Thank you, and duly noted, Commissioner Fernandez. I appreciate your input always. Thank you. Okay, let's begin the meeting. Stephanie, number 17.
All right, we have item 17, discuss considering of a revision to the city's current process for handling fines and penalties for signage and other small city code violations. This item will be presented by Code, and it is sponsored by Commissioner Bell.
Commissioner, would you like to tee it up?
Yeah, just a quick introduction. It just seems that we have some limited capacity to enforce fines and penalties for things that are not being handled correctly by business owners or individuals in the city, and a lot of that is set by the state. Yet, even within our small purview of what we are permitted to do, it is still pretty complicated. There's not a lot of teeth to the penalties. Things can get referred to a special magistrate to get appealed, and it feels like, you know, it's something we've all campaigned on and residents have been talking about for years, that we really need to have very consistent and timely and effective enforcement on things that we can control. And, every day the state takes those away from us. So the few that we have, we want to make sure that we do. So this was an item to really discuss how to make that process better.
Thank you. And we have code here, Hernan and Tom.
Hi, good morning. Hernan Cardino, Code Compliance Department. So, yeah, the ask was for us to identify those violations in Chapter 58 and our LDRs that do not have fines associated with them, and some that do. What we would ask is, as we go through some of these codes of laws and ordinances, is that maybe we have like our sanitation violation, which allows a time to cure before the fine actually sets in, so that there's a reinspection for compliance, and then thereafter we would have a fine kick in. Same thing with our sign ordinance. As you know, our sign ordinance does not have any fines attached, and it does go to the special magistrate for adjudication and fines to run after there's a date of compliance that's not abided by the violator. In the attachment, you'll see some of the Chapter 58 violations with associated fines. And then, of course, the escalation. And as we know, some of these fines do become, the daily running fines become hard dollar liens against the folio owner.
I'm all for giving small businesses the opportunity to cure a violation, but it seems like it goes on and on and on, and then it gets referred to the special magistrate, or if things get, made into liens against the property. I mean, we've got the Deauville property that has millions of dollars in fines that we can't access, that they're not paying. They're very recalcitrant in curing anything. I mean, that's an extreme example. But I'd like to hear from you guys what you think we could be doing. Small business owner, they didn't know that the sign that they put in the window is not up to code. They've got 2 weeks to fix it. Fine. But we've got a lot of people who aren't like that. And so then, sending it to special magistrate for them to make their case, and that takes months and months and months. And then, up until now, I mean, we just changed this, but up until now it could get deferred at special magistrate for months, each side going back and forth. What can we do to make this more efficient and more concise and more responsive to what we are all of us, the staff and residents and all of us here on the dais are looking for? It's one thing if you don't know and you have an opportunity to fix it and you fix it, but after that, or if it's a repeat offense, or if you just don't care, there are consequences to the actions, right? I mean, why are we letting the bad actors get away with things that the good actors take pains to get right the first or second time? And how do we make that just a little bit of a tighter process?
And that would be our recommendation, is that we do mirror, just like we do with our sanitation violations, where they have 24 hours to comply. It gets us an immediate reinspection, so that eyesore of the sanitation just being there, the garbage being there, is picked up. And if it's not picked up within those 24 hours, then the fine violation kicks in. And then the hard dollar cost for removal of this garbage.
But then does it get sent on to the special magistrate to be appealed? And how does that work?
Well, they'll always have an appeal period for the fine that's being instituted on the violation, yes.
So if in 24 hours they haven't cured the issue, the fine starts, but still perhaps the issue hasn't been addressed. So it could then go on for months because it doesn't get heard by the special magistrate for a couple of months, perhaps, and there's a deferral at, one per side maximum now, but that's maybe 4 or 5 months. And what enforcement mechanism do we have to insist upon people adhering to the code? I mean, we're not making stuff up on the fly, like, oh, we don't like you, or you had to change the color of your sign from red to blue. These are the laws of our city, and it's one thing, it's perfectly fine if you make a mistake or you didn't know, or whatever, that's fine. But for those people who are not the good actors, who are not trying to do the right thing, who just skate by, how do we keep this from dragging out for half a year or more?
So in some of our ordinances, it actually has a time limit for when there's no compliance, that a second violation or third violation would apply, and then it would be escalating on the fine schedule. We find that in our noise ordinances too. If after 15 minutes you haven't cured that noise, then you're subject to an escalating fine schedule.
And how do you collect the fines once they've escalated if the people are scofflaws and they just don't care, they're not curing, they're not responding, they just don't care?
Maybe the city attorney's office can help us with that. Usually we do file liens when we have recurring fines or daily running fines, but those are adjudicated by the special magistrate.
But the liens aren't payable until the property changes hands, right?
Or it's refinanced,
So
pledged,
that could
mortgaged,
be-
sold.
That could be decades. So there's like, and this is not me coming at you guys at all, but this is like, there is in the system, which is very well intended, there's a gap, right? So if we've got escalating fines that accrue as liens against your property, but you own your property outright, you're not refinancing, and you're a derelict owner, they don't care. They're never gonna be held accountable. And when they die and their property passes on to somebody else, then it will be part of the purchase price negotiations. And meanwhile, we're 20 years later living with a crappy, store owner, let's say, doing nasty things in the neighborhood. So how do we fix that hole, that unintended consequences hole?
Well, just sort of, you got a very good summary from code. From the legal perspective, there are a couple of things that we could do. The first is, like we're doing with our nuisance party house lawsuits, which we just initiated in the last year. We've had a great success with 3 big cases with scofflaw businesses. If they just refuse to bring themselves into compliance, we can also, in addition to going to special master, we can take them to court and have them declared a nuisance. As far as the fines that keep accruing as a lien until the house is sold, or whatever, until the property is sold, we do that for a couple of reasons. First, because it's the easiest way for us to collect, because we sort of automatically get it. But we could, if you wanted us to, and it would take resources, and we would need to figure out the budgetary impact of that. But we could bring lawsuits to foreclose on the property immediately if they didn't pay and if they had ongoing fines. As soon as the amounts were set, we could sue to collect, or we could foreclose on our lien. It would, like I said, that would be very labor intensive, but it would be much more immediate. And I would note it's also somewhat less financially good for the city, because the interest rate that we get on a lien and without having to pay for attorney's fees to collect it and everything else is actually better than we might get in other cases. So sort of just from a dollar and cents perspective, it is sometimes better to just let it run as a lien, because we're making a lot of money on that. But as I hear what you're saying, and if you want enforcement quickly, the option from legal is we could go to court, but that takes resources, and that's not something that we're doing on a widespread basis now.
Do you guys have information, not necessarily here at your fingertips, but can you pull together information that indicates how many egregious offenders we have? I mean, is it 5 people in the city who have just running lists of fines that they just don't care about, or is it 100 that, like, I don't know the scope of how bad this is, but I guess for me, I understand that it's more financially efficient and beneficial to do it, with the liens and special magistrate and let it play out. But all of us are up here, and those of us who aren't, I think maybe only the mayor who's not up here with us today, but he is of the same mind that, we have laws on the books. We don't need to keep adding laws. We have laws on the books. They need to be adhered to. The good operators do a great job of that, and the bad operators skate by. So there's a balance here that has to happen between what is efficient and cost effective versus what sends a pretty strong message, like you can't get away with this anymore. And whether you're a tiny little smoke shop tucked away in a corner or the biggest nightclub, the law applies equally to you, and you should be held responsible equally. And so it would be useful, I think, to see for part of this discussion how many people would fall into this category of being potential targets of suits because they have a running list of violations that they don't have any interest in curing. Because at the end of the day, I'm less interested in generating revenue for the city in 20 years than I am in cleaning it up today for all of us. So I think we need a little bit more information, a financial analysis and analysis from you guys to determine, there are only 4 of these guys, and they're really terrible offenders. Let's go get them. And everyone else we can adjust and go to the sanitation model that you're mentioning, and we can tweak things. But again, if we send a strong message, then people will stop hopefully stop doing this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Why don't we move this item to the full commission with them bringing that analysis that you mentioned, and then we can close it out.
With both the
Yes.
legal, okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you all.
Item number 13.
Item number 13 is discuss the use of a centralized web portal for improving the city's permit process. And Frank Quintana will be presenting.
Good morning. So this item was originally brought to the September 13th, 2023 commission meeting by Mayor Minor, who was then a commissioner. And he requested for a referral to the Public Safety and Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee to discuss a centralized web portal to bring in the different aspects of the permitting process to a single place on the website and make it easier for residents and business owners to find elements of that. Our department worked on this page prior to that meeting, and it's been live since August 29th of 2023. That was done as a collaborative effort with all of the other city departments that partake in the permitting process in some capacity. And the website, the page is located on the city's website at miamibeachfl.gov/permits. And since we went live in August, it's received well over 24,000 views on average per month. So it's been well received. It has a lot of traffic. It seems to have helped a lot of the residents that had reached out to us about some of the transparency and centralized information.
Great. Colleagues on the committee, any comments?
Madam Chair, I'm not on the committee, but.
No, you don't get to talk. No? Commissioner Fernandez?
Thank you. I know we sponsored and we adopted a study that's been presented to us in the past, and it had a number of recommendations also as it related to online processes and trees to help facilitate the flow of the process with the building department. Are those recommendations from that study? I think I had sponsored it. Are those being implemented as part of this portal?
So the link to that will be available as part of that portal. That is a product that we are working with a software provider, who's Tyler Technologies. It's a module that ties into the permitting process that we have added on. That's something that we have a contract signed for, and we are scheduled to begin in the next 60 days or so, once their
Great.
project resources are available. So we're taking this as incremental improvements. The portal was the first easy thing that
Sure.
we could address. And that is absolutely something that we've worked on as part of the ad hoc committee that we're working on interdepartmentally.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, let's close this item out. Next item is number 11.
Number 11 is discussion protecting and/or moving the historic North Beach Tower to a different location in North Beach.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go directly to Debbie Tackett, our historic preservation expert. For those of you who don't know, it's the pylon. It's that big white phallic thing that's.
Thank you,
up in the air.
Commissioner. The commissioner's correct. It is, it's attached to a building that's located on the corner of Harding Avenue and 71st Street. It was actually an addition to the bank building. It was an addition about 10 years after the original building was constructed for the purpose of providing signage. So right now, I don't believe there's any real signage on it, but the idea was that the bank needed more visibility, and in the 1950s and 60s, signage, you know, those sky signs were a very popular technique for advertising businesses, so that was added. There's also an almost identical one located between 7th and 8th on Washington Avenue. That was done by the same architect in the same building. That particular property is located within a local historic district, so any modifications or removal of that would require a public hearing. This particular property is not located within any historic district. So therefore, it is not protected. We spoke last to the committee, and I know we have a new committee now, so welcome everyone, last year. So it's been over a year, or about a year, since this was last discussed. At that meeting, the direction was to provide a cost estimate for potentially relocating the pylon, and also to explore the potential reconstruction of a pylon somewhere within city property. So staff had reached out to our continuing services engineers, and we were not able to provide any significant or detailed cost estimate at this point, due to the fact that further study would need to be done in terms of how the structure would be cut and what route it would take to be relocated. There are certain elements such as power lines and other considerations that could significantly increase the difficulty and cost of a relocation. We also don't know the existing structural conditions, what the strength of the concrete is, what the strength of any reinforcing steel within the structure is, and if it could even be successfully reconstructed in another site. Once I have identified a site, additional study would need to be made regarding the introduction of foundations to support the structure. It is quite large. It's about 55 feet tall, weighs well over 100,000 pounds currently. Further, I mean, the administration has looked at this. We have some concerns with regarding the appropriateness of removing such an iconic element that was really part and parcel to its site, right? It was in a commercial corridor as a signage element. Removing it from its context loses a lot of associative value that the existing pylon has. That with the unknown costs, I mean, I think we can surmise that it would be extremely costly. Although I don't have a specific number for you, a structure of that size and of that age, to relocate it and patch it back together would be an extremely costly endeavor.
Thank you, Debbie. Well, I appreciate the discussion. Committee members, any comments?
I'm not sure what to do with this. I mean, the property owners are frustrated because they haven't been able to do anything, and they can't really move it because this item is pending with HPP. It's very difficult. There is a matching pylon on Washington Avenue, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so
and that one is
I saw-
protected.
Yeah.
In the historic district.
How do you guys feel about this? Because at this point, what are you advising, Debbie? You want us to?
Conclude the item, we do not think it's, from a historic preservation standpoint, we do not think it's appropriate to remove it from its commercial corridor context and put it as an isolated structure, especially given the fact that we do have the one in its original context on Washington Avenue, and the probably significant unknown costs are all of a concern. And the property recently sold, Commissioner, and I believe the planning director has spoken with the new owner, and at this point, they have no plans to remove the structure. They're going to keep it at this point. They're looking at the development options for the site.
So then I'm just gonna move to terminate this item in the interim. I know there's a group of people that are
Yeah.
gonna be upset about this in North Beach because they really wanted to save it, and I was trying to give them, I think Commissioner Bott wants to weigh
Wait,
in on
well,
this.
Commissioner Magazine wanted to speak first.
Yeah, that's fine, and
So
I
we're
think
gonna
I'm
con-
along the lines. Debbie, I know you can't specifically quantify, but even if it's a very broad range, are we talking $10,000? Are we talking $250,000 or
It's
$2
probably
million?
I would say it's probably north of the 250 number. Yeah.
Commissioner Bott, we're terminating this item. Do you have anything to add?
Just a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie, are you able to keep us, I want to join Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez in whatever might happen down the road. So this was all predicated based on the fact that the building was being sold and that tower was at risk. If the building is being redeveloped in a way that keeps the tower, then I think the need to protect it goes away, which would be the best situation for everybody. But when the plans get submitted, can you let us know where the tower stands in all of this, because then I think if it is no longer part of the site, then I think there may be a conversation about, do we replicate something in the park or whatever? Because I know there's one in South Beach on Washington, but this is a very visible and meaningful, it sounds weird, but it is a wonky, meaningful signal of what North Beach is. And we lost the log cabin, and we're waiting for that. And we've lost this, and we lost that, and the Byron Carlisle is gonna be reimagined. So it is not just concrete. It's got a lot of other stuff, and so spending $500,000 to move the existing one may not be the best option, but if it, the best option is for it to stay where it is. Barring that, if it is going to be lost to construction, maybe there's an opportunity to commission a sculpture for Altos Del Mar Park or something that replicates it. And so anyhow, point being, please just keep us posted so we can not let this, wake up one day and say, oops, we blew another one.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Thank
And
you.
I just would like to point out that although I haven't personally seen any redevelopment plans for this particular property, any redevelopment will require a public hearing in front of the Design Review Board, which you all would be notified about, and the members of the public would also be noticed.
Thank you. So we're concluding the item. Next one is 23.
23 is discuss protecting single-family home developments from new construction.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Yes. 23. Is this you too, Debbie?
Yes, it
On
is.
behalf of planning? Go ahead, you can tee it up. I put this on because what's happening with the new flood regulations and the fact that some homes are being built way higher, 10 feet, 12 feet higher than the homes next door. Some of them don't have the appropriate retaining walls. And I wanted us to have a discussion about how we could protect the homes that are existing, from these new constructions. Look, I understand that we're raising streets, the building code has changed, but what can we do further than we're already doing? And if someone, for example, goes in, builds a single-family home, the retaining wall isn't working, and their property starts to flood, do we have any, do the residents have any recourse? Have we provided them with any recourse?
So, Commissioner, if I could just go through the current regulations with regard to this issue. Prior to even the adoption of the resiliency code, the single-family development regulations do include a requirement that where elevations are being modified and the adjacent home is lower than the new modified elevation of the yard, that all stormwater be retained on site. So that is already in the books and has been for quite some time. When we developed the resiliency code, we actually looked at this issue and included additional safeguards for single-family homes, including the requirement that a retaining wall or a very shallow slope, a 5-to-1 slope, be introduced on the property that is being elevated higher than its neighbor, or a combination of both. We think this is the best safeguard to require it. We also have certain aesthetic requirements for that retaining wall to protect the neighboring property from just, some type of blank wall. We require a high-quality finish on it. We do believe that this is sufficient. The city's in a transition period in our single-family neighborhoods, and we recognize that there are awkward moments when a new home is built in accordance with the required new elevation, that there does need to be some consideration, which is why we had included this in our resiliency code.
Pretty well. What about landscape protections? That's the other thing that bothers me is you can come along, build a new home next door, and there's no requirements to kind of screen this huge cement structure from, I think that we should include at least a landscape requirement that we don't currently have, right?
I mean, that's something that would require a change to the single-family development regulations, but that's something certainly that we could consider, and the commission could direct us to take a look at that.
How would you guys feel about potentially requiring landscaping to screen?
Sure.
Because it's not, a property owner is, they're living in their home and all of a sudden, the home next door gets purchased, they're losing their privacy, and I think that these new homeowners who are selling their houses that they purchased for 2 or 3 million for like 10 and 12 million, they could at least provide some sort of, most of them are spec houses, by the way. I think that we should require them to landscape it so that this onus doesn't fall on, you know, the property owner. What do you think of
I
this?
think it sounds, if I could through the chair, I think it sounds good in theory. I'm just trying to think through some of the potential unintended consequences of having it as a steadfast requirement as opposed to maybe a suggestion to the DRB. I'm not, strong one way or another. I'm just trying to think. It sounds like a great idea, and I think it kind of helps in this transition period that Debbie pointed out. I'm just trying to be sure if we put it as a black and white requirement that it doesn't provide any unintended consequences.
Madam Chair.
I would guarantee you, oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Magazine, and I would guarantee you that homeowners across Miami Beach would be very grateful if we implement this requirement. Because you get this house, so first of all, you're losing all of your privacy, right? Then you're required to go in and landscape. They don't really care because they're far high above you. But, all of a sudden you've got people like peeping into your pool. You never asked for that. The setbacks are a little bit better now. But if we had some sort of minimum screening requirements from planning, I think it would go a long way in softening the blow.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're speaking specifically in part because the item, I think it's looking at the retaining walls and the visual impact of the retaining walls, right? And let me just ask, with Design Review Board and their review criteria, what is considered by the DRB? What is it that they objectively have to consider in their review criteria when they're looking at an application that may potentially have a retaining wall, where perhaps the true impacts of that wall is not on the applicant that is being reviewed before the body, but rather on a abutting property that is not really being reviewed, but yet it's going to be subject of the impact. So how does the review criteria take that into consideration?
That's a great question. So the design review criteria does take adjacent properties into consideration. When an applicant goes before the design review board, they're required to provide some basic information about their neighbors. The design review board does review compatibility of new construction to its adjacent neighbors and the surrounding context, at large. The design review board also reviews in great detail landscape plans. There is a landscape architect on the design review board, and they often impose conditions. When single-family homes are reviewed by the design review board, they're also publicly noticed. Typically, staff will advise applicants before we even get to that point to reach out to their neighbors, to discuss any potential concerns that their neighbors may have, and integrate solutions to those concerns within the plans before they even get to the design review board. It's important to point out, however, that many new single-family homes no longer require going through the design review board process. Staff does have the ability to review new homes in accordance with the design review criteria, but not at that level of scrutiny and not with the public being noticed.
And so,
Can I make a motion to refer it?
well, I just have one more question. And I'm
Commissioner
sorry to-
Fernandez.
Thank you. With the retaining walls, are there setbacks on the retaining walls? Because to Commissioner Wilson Gonzalez's point, if they are, let's say, landscaping that is placed on the to help insulate the neighboring property from the visual impact of it, well, is that landscaping now on the neighboring property, or do we take into consideration a potential setback from the property line and the retaining wall to be able to incorporate? I mean, these are just, thoughts that come into my mind.
Currently, there's required setbacks up to a certain height. So in the front and any sort of rear facing a waterway or a golf course is a 5-foot limit from adjusted grade. In the interior sides, past your front yard, you can go up 7 feet from adjusted grade. So, you know, that can still be pretty tall. If it's taller than that, there are additional setback requirements, but you can go right up to the property line, up to 7 feet above the adjusted grade.
Thank you, Debbie. A sponsor, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, how about sending it back to commission with a recommendation to refer to land use for further discussion?
I'm fine with that. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Somebody second that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so let's
Thank you.
move with that recommendation. Next item, number 28.
Number 28, discuss upcoming Miami-Dade County Venetian Causeway Bridge projects, and that was a supplemental that I emailed to you all yesterday, and you guys have a printed one on the dais.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. You asked us to go back, and there were three specific areas that you wanted us to look at. The first one was higher tolling during construction. And of course, the tolling structure on the Venetian Causeway is dictated by Miami-Dade County, as that it's used to pay for the operations and maintenance of the Venetian Causeway bridges. And it'll also be used to pay for the debt service once the bridges are replaced. So any increase in the tolls would require Miami-Dade County approval for that. The second area you wanted us to look at was limiting access to residents during construction. This is obviously a significant effort because in order to do that, we would have to have PD be able to enforce this at both ends of the causeway. To do that, that would be at a significant cost to the project, and I would think that Miami-Dade County, because this is a county project, would ask us to bear the cost of that. The third option, which is one that I believe Commissioner Magazine proffered, was transit options. There is a current bus that serves the Venetian Causeway, which is Route 15, and it operates during the weekdays. It operates on 30-minute headways during the morning and the afternoon peaks. I think one option that we could certainly explore with Miami-Dade County, and my colleague Jose Gonzalez from Transportation can certainly weigh in, but is to increase the frequency of the headways during the morning peak, the midday peak, which is what we call the 12 to 2, the lunch, and then the afternoon peaks as well, to increase the frequency of that headway, maybe from 30 minutes to 15 minutes during those times, to provide more transit options.
Committee members, any comments? Here's what I will ask, because it sounds like there's some missing answers. Go to the county about the tolls and find out if they're open to that, and the PD costs, if the county would help with those costs, or if it would in fact be the city of Miami Beach, and send us an LTC when you have that information.
Very good. We'll
Thank
do
you.
so. Thank
And
you.
we'll close this item. Next one is 27.
Number 27 is discuss resolution 2023-32659, directing the administration and the city attorney's office to evaluate whether the city could purchase the 63rd Street Bridge from the state of Florida, or exploring entering into an agreement with the state for the city to operate the bridge on behalf of the state at the city's expense, which would provide the city with the ability to better control the bridge schedule and mitigate the severe vehicular traffic congestion caused by the bridge opening.
Okay, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
It sounds like a crazy idea. It does. But right now, we have zero jurisdiction over this bridge opening. We've tried to ban the charters. Oh, we just banned thank you to Commissioner Suarez. We finally banned the charters. But we're still seeing those boats. You guys were at Cafe Bernie the other night. You saw a couple of charters go by. So I would love us to, even if we're not, let's say that we're not purchasing the bridge. And I do know that the Coast Guard is saying that they are always going to control the operations of the bridge. But I would love for us to direct the administration to send someone to Tallahassee and negotiate, explain to the governor what's happening with this bridge, the impact on the tens of thousands of people, the traffic blockages that it's costing, and figure out some way for us to be able to control when this bridge is open and have specific times of the day. Right now, the directive is whenever there's a boat there, and I think it needs to be, I think that boaters or charters need to know that there's only certain hours of the day that we're going to be opening that bridge. They can plan their charters around that. That way we open, maybe it only opens 4 times a day. and those boats are gonna know that that's when they go. But we're never gonna know if we don't at least try. I don't know how you feel about this. It sounds
So
crazy, but.
I'll make a comment. The way I feel is that even if we purchase it, the Coast Guard still decides, and there would be no added benefit than to purchasing it, because then we would have to assume the maintenance of the bridge, and we would still have no control. My colleagues, I think.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
I'm not even saying that we decide to purchase it. Let's make it a legislative priority to have our lobbyists that we're gonna be paying a bunch of money when we figure out whoever it's going to be that's representing us in Tallahassee, at least begin to have some sort of conversation to possibly take over the management of this bridge. Maybe it's not a purchase, but to not have a conversation with them or not at least have it on a list of legislative priorities, I don't see the harm in adding it to our priorities.
Commissioner Suarez, Vice Chair Suarez.
It's okay. Jose, what's the process of asking that the bridge be open during certain hours only? Does the Coast Guard have, I remember vaguely that we used to have it on every hour, but the issue that caused was that there would be a lot of boat backup, and there'd play noise, and it would be disruptive to the residents. But now that we've sort of really curtailed charter activity, it seems like the boats that are going through there are just leisure boats. And is there a way that we can ask the Coast Guard to open the bridge every 90 minutes?
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. That is correct. There is a process. The U.S. Coast Guard has a process for these types of requests. We've gone through that process before in prior years. As you mentioned, the bridge was on a different schedule and it actually had no lockdown period during the peak traffic times. About, I would say, 8 years ago now, we worked with the Coast Guard. Commissioner Mickey Steinberg was instrumental and sponsored that legislation, and we worked with the Coast Guard to establish restrictions whereby during the morning peak hours and the afternoon peak hours, the bridge does not open except for, and there's always the except for, that's federal law, whereby emergency vessels and vessels in distress, tugs and tows, must be allowed passage by the bridge tender. And so we worked years ago with the Coast Guard to get, so in terms of the process, it involves many times a traffic study, which we're currently doing already. We've collected data, both vehicular data, the impact that the bridge openings has on the roadway network, as well as vessel volumes and data. Not necessarily what type of vessel it is, because unfortunately the bridge logs that DOT maintains don't get into that level of specificity, whether it's a charter vessel or not. But just, in terms of volumes of vessels and when those vessels are crossing, we have that data, and we're using that data to model what different scenarios. One scenario is if the bridge would, because currently when it's not restricted, during the non-restricted times, it opens every half hour. And so there have been a lot of complaints and suggestions that perhaps if the bridge opened once an hour versus once every 30 minutes, it would be better on the traffic network, because it would at least allow the network to recover. What happens is every 30 minutes.
Yeah. But is it through the chair? Is it possible to ask them for every 90 minutes? Is that out of the ordinary for them, or is it maybe even every 2 hours?
I think it would be out of the ordinary. They're going to ask for data. The Coast Guard's going to ask, what does the data show? What do the models show? If we open every 30 minutes, which is the current condition, if we open every 1 hour, which is what we're modeling, and we can perhaps also model a different scenario of 90 minutes or something along those lines. And then I think the data is what's going to be the indicator for the Coast Guard in terms of what they would be willing to authorize.
And who handles that, I guess, negotiation? Is it Transportation for Miami Beach with the Coast Guard?
Correct. That's and through the Florida Department of Transportation, because 63rd Street is a state road. It's State Road 907. It's part of Alton Road, so FDOT would need to be involved as well, and they operate the bridge.
So do you think by purchasing this bridge, does it give us any more leverage in these negotiations?
Well, in terms of purchasing the bridge, and I want to point out there's a separate but related discussion that was the outcome of the February commission meeting, whereby the administration was asked to look at taking over several state roads, the primary arterials, including 63rd Street. So as part of that larger process, we are exploring, the statutory process that we would need to go through, working with FDOT to see, what it would take. And then I think the traffic study would give, from a traffic perspective, the advantages, the disadvantages, the pros and the cons of the different bridge openings. But in terms of ownership, I want to reiterate what Commissioner Christian Gonzalez said, which is that regardless of who owns it, the Coast Guard establishes and regulates those hours.
And just last question, how far along, or how much longer do you need for that study to finish?
So the study is currently being reviewed by FDOT. It's been completed, it's in draft form, and it's being reviewed by FDOT, and we're pending their comments on the study. So I anticipate within the next few weeks.
Okay, but Jose, have we ever gone to the federal government to remove that bridge? Have we ever put it on our federal lobbying short list to actually send somebody up to Tallahassee, have a conversation?
State lobbying.
It's what, the state? The state, no, its own, well, I mean, yes, but it's a federal guideline with the Coast Guard. That's why it's so complicated. It's a state management, federal, I mean, like, maybe it's something simple that we can have, but we've never made it a legislative priority, but I think taking control of when this opens, taking it away from the Coast Guard, are you positive there's no way every single bridge in the state of Florida and every single waterway is managed by the Coast Guard? Are you sure, Jose? 'Cause
Commissioner,
it doesn't
that I'm
sound right
aware
to
of,
me. It just doesn't. I guarantee you that
Yes,
there are
but
other.
We'd have to see if there's, a bridge over navigable waters that is not owned, or I'm not aware of one, but we haven't done that search.
Then what I would suggest to all of you who are going to be here many more years is that you at least put in the pipeline that maybe we get a new bridge that accommodates higher boats, something, some sort of flyover, because this problem is not going to go away. And it's and I'm hoping that this traffic study that's been ongoing for years and years and years, but I would like to, I mean, maybe you put this in process now, 10 years from now, it's not impossible to build a new bridge. We built a new bridge with Philip Levine. It was difficult, but we did it. We got the funding. We built that bridge that really connected West Avenue, and that was defining. So, it's not impossible to do it if we all, make an effort and where there's a will. So I just don't want this item to kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Commissioner Magazine.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Jose, can I ask if you reach out to your counterparts at the City of Miami and see what successes and challenges they have had with the Brickell Bridge? Because I understand that there's similar issues, probably even more of a greater magnitude there, given their increased traffic. And it's a similar pushback that they've received over the years. Probably even more so for us because they actually have commercial shipping ports there that need to be accessed. So the Coast Guard, from my understanding, is always pushed back, but perhaps you can liaise with your counties there to get if there are some best practices that they have experienced success with. I know they have limitations on hours, but some of the ideas my colleagues have suggested, just reach out to your counterparts at the City of Miami to see where they stand in that process. And then I would say to all of us, we've seen kind of firsthand that there can be interests in our city that at times have more juice and pull in Tallahassee than perhaps even our entire city. And we have some of the most well-connected business people in the entire state, even the entire country, that are undertaking significant projects in that direct area. And we should be putting it in front of them, front and center, that their ability to sell some of the most high-priced condos in the entire world is going to be contingent on figuring out this traffic solution. And we need to put all hands on deck and ask them to assist us in essentially officially or unofficially lobbying their counterparts in Tallahassee and at FDOT.
Thank you, Commissioner. Where do you want to go with this?
I just want to answer what he, it's interesting that you just said that, because I was looking at new guidelines. A lot of people ran and got their building permits in town center. And, but now they're gonna go back, and they're gonna want bigger, higher, more, over 20 feet. They might come back and say, what's the tallest building in the area? They could come back and say they want way more. I think that when they do, they should probably pay into some sort of fund, and I'm working on that right now. So it's interesting that you say, that we have to work with the private sector. So I'm in the process right now of creating guidelines. If you want to come back and you want to redo your building permit, hopefully it'll be, I have a referral on the meeting, the May 15th meeting. Hopefully, they're going to have to, if they want to go bigger, higher, FAR, and completely circumvent us with these new laws, well, we're going to really make them pay into a fund in order to do so. I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm hoping that all of you would sponsor it.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Thank you. To the Transportation Director. So clearly, Coast Guard, the one that operates this, is it the Coast Guard directly, or do they subcontract an entity that actually handles the operation, the opening and the closure of the bridge?
The operations and the maintenance of the bridge are subcontracted by FDOT.
By FDOT?
By FDOT,
Okay.
as the owners of the roadway, which includes the bridge.
And who do they subcontract that to?
I don't know the name of the company, of the contractor.
Okay, because part of the issue is that it's, from what I sense, from what I've heard, and from what we all experience, is that the bridge is opening more often than what it should. A boat shows up and they don't wait till the half hour. They don't wait till the hour. And, what remedies? If this is a subcontract, contracts with governmental entities usually have provisions for remedies when the contract isn't followed to the standards of what is prescribed in the agreement. And so I would wonder, does the contract stipulate that the bridge should draw only on the hour and on the half hour? Does it say that in the contract? And if it does say that on the contract, and it can be proven that that is not happening, well, then what are the remedies that can be placed on that state contractor to at least have them adhere to the appropriate schedule?
Sure. Very good points, Commissioner. We have reached out to FDOT to try to understand the contract and the operations of the bridge tenders. And one thing we do is we periodically request the bridge logs from the DOT, and they share those logs with us, and then we scrub those logs to see how many exceptions to the rule there have been. And there have been some. It's not in abundance. And so we approach FDOT. When that happens, we approach FDOT. One of the things that we learned, interestingly enough, is, for example, the afternoon restriction begins at 4:05 p.m. and it ends at 6:59 p.m. So between those hours, the bridge does not go up. However, if the last scheduled opening in the afternoon for that bridge is at 4 o'clock. If the bridge opens at 4:01, it takes minutes for it to go up. The gates go down, the bridge goes up. The vessels have to pass. It's usually since it's the last authorized crossing, there's usually high demand of vessels that are wanting to cross. And so that opening spills sometimes 20 minutes into the restricted hours. And we've approached FDOT with that issue because I think that's when we're getting a lot of the complaints from residents, drivers saying the bridge is up and it's 4:20. Why is the bridge up? And so FDOT's been
Thank you.
Oh.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Here's what my motion would be. I would like to make a motion to make it both a state and federal, one of our priorities, to speak to both the federal government and the state government and see how we can improve the current management situation and what's happening right now, and see what they can do in terms of either funding.
I'll second that motion. And I'd like to make my own motion. I'd like to direct the administration to request that the bridge be opened every 90 minutes, and if that's not possible, every 60 minutes.
Okay, all in favor?
Can I ask one question,
Yes.
Commissioner? Very quickly. The opening and operation of the bridge in that blackout period, I think it allows for emergencies, correct?
That's correct.
Is that operation, because you could really, the term emergency seems to be very generous and ambiguous, would the opening of that bridge during restricted times and the length that it's open for, would that be something under the purview of our Inspector General? Legal, maybe?
I'm sorry, I was just writing the motion. Could you repeat that?
It's very generous for, just observing firsthand, for what can be deemed an emergency for vessels passing through during quote-unquote restricted times. And that's actually been an issue that was abused in past years in our region. Is that operation of when the bridge opens during restricted times, is that something that would be under the purview of our Inspector General?
Well, our Inspector General doesn't have any authority over the Coast
No,
Guard
that's-
or its
that's what I was thinking,
contractors,
yeah.
but our Inspector General can do an investigation and a study and put out a report on whatever you direct that impacts city interests. It just wouldn't have any force behind it.
Okay, Vice Chair?
Yeah, I've heard anecdotal stories of the bridge tenders being paid off by these charters, and so that's it's not unwarranted to have an investigation on this. So, but at any rate, if I make a motion to ask that, can we do that at committee, or does it have to go to commission first?
Well, what you would be, your motions here are to refer something back to the commission for an ordinance or a resolution to do what you're asking them to do. And currently, I have two motions, one from Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez to make a state and federal legislative priority of these items, and that was seconded by you, Commissioner Suarez. And then after we discuss and vote on that one, I have a separate motion from you, Commissioner Suarez, to suggest opening every 90 minutes or at a minimum every 60 minutes. That has not yet been seconded.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that was now been seconded.
All in favor?
Wait, we're still on the first one. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, if you're done talking about that, do you want to take a vote on that since it's been seconded?
Sure.
Which is to make a legislative priority federally and state to make the bridge schedule more advantageous to us.
And I promise that if we do this, I'll meet with our lobbyist and go up there and really, I think if we explain this and start the process, because there has to be some sort of fix in the future. Like capital improvement style fix on the bridge.
Commissioner Bott, did you have a comment?
It's moot now, thanks.
Madam Chair, if I may. Just one last comment. Once we receive the comments from FDOT on the traffic study, we'd be happy to brief each of you on the findings and the recommendations of.
Send us an LTC.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so did anyone want to vote no on the first motion? And then turning to the second motion, did anyone want to vote no on that? Okay, so we'll send both back to the commission with those recommendations.
Thank you. Item 14.
Item 14 is discuss regarding the co-naming of a Miami Beach street in honor of women who have significantly impacted the city's history and culture.
Commissioner Bott?
Yeah, this was brought by the Commission for Women, and has been pointed out that of all the honorary names of streets, not a one has been made for a notable woman of Miami Beach, not because there aren't any, because there have been plenty and continue to be plenty, but just because, who knows? So we'd like to rectify that. So I will turn it over to Jose to give a little more detail.
I'll make a quick comment before. So last year, I put forth an item to co-name streets. One is for Gloria Stefan, and the other one is for Naomi Wilzig. That's been in the works. It had already gone to committee, and it's at first reading in May for the full commission. So I did spearhead because of the Commission for Women, 2 items. But Jose, please say more.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think I'm going to defer to our legal team, because once the first reading goes to commission and, you know, that gets approved, then it just goes through the process. First reading, second reading, and then at the tail end, we work with the county to fabricate and install the signs, the co-naming signs. But in the middle of that process is legal really takes the lead.
After this item closes, I just had one quick comment about the last. So,
Okay, so where we are in this process is the 2 specific women, Naomi Wilzig and Gloria Stefan, were discussed by this committee and favorably sent back to the commission to pass an ordinance amendment that will allow a category to be temporarily added that will encompass those 2 women, so that, and also your discussion here approving that to be placed on the ordinance is considered sufficient to, you don't need to discuss it again. So once it is, the ordinance is passed, the city commission then can pass a resolution to actually name the streets, and then you go through the process with the county that we were talking about. The only thing that is left for this commission to do is the Commission for Women's recommendation that a number of other women be considered for street namings, and they've made a list, and that's on page 167 of your agenda. They also say anybody, in addition to the ones they specifically suggest, they also say any other noteworthy women that you might want to discuss should be discussed. And if you choose, if this committee chooses to recommend any of the list or any that you come up with on your own, we could send that back to the commission with a recommendation to add those names into the ordinance that we're currently drafting for Wilzig and Gloria Stefan, which will be sent for first reading at the May City Commission meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Commissioner Bott.
I would like to add 2 names for consideration. One would be Barbara Bear Capitman, and one would be Maddie Bauer, who's our first female mayor.
And is Barbara already on a street? I thought I saw her name on the street. It is.
We already have Barbara Capitman.
Yeah.
She's on 10th Street. I thought she just had the bust. No pun intended.
But I'll second the Maddie Bauer.
Yeah.
I had previously requested legislation on that, on Maddie Bauer.
Which street?
Okay.
Should we put her, you know that street, what's it, 14th Place? That should be the
She
street.
lives around there.
Yeah, we should put it on that street where she lives, on 14th Place.
So I don't want to
Maddie
step
Bauer
on
Way.
Commissioner Fernandez's toes. I didn't know you had previously.
Requested for legislation to name a street after Maddie Bauer.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yes.
that. I was.
That's fine, you wouldn't know.
I was just responding to the comment of, speak now, forever hold your peace. So I don't know if we can, to double team the process on that, to put it
Sure.
into this as well.
With pleasure.
And then, and 14th Street is a great idea. And then the other person I would suggest would be Nancy Liebman, who has been instrumental in shaping our modern city. So,
Okay, that's your motion? I'll second.
thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, in order to move this process forward with the additional names, I believe we're going to need to know the streets that are proposed to be co-named after these women.
Okay, can we
And
move it to the
legal can
commission
maybe-
for the streets to be decided at
that
the
point.
commission? Because I think right now on the fly, we don't know the streets and
Yeah,
we'll do
you
our
can
due
do that.
diligence and get
Typically,
that.
what happens during this process, the administration will talk to the families and
Yes.
find out if there's a significant street to them that would be, and then maybe work with the county to see if that's gonna work with them and come up with a street name. And yes, you can send that back with the recommendation for the name and to find the street for when it goes to the commission for
Okay.
the ordinance change.
And I know with Mayor Bauer, we
Fernandez.
had been looking at 15th Street for Mayor Bauer.
Okay. So
So
now,
is there anybody opposed to those three names, and are those the only three names that you want to talk about? Oh, so,
It's only two.
okay,
It
Robert,
was just Maddie Bauer and Nancy Liebman.
got it, okay.
I would just, through the chair, just request if somehow Mayor Bauer is someone who I worked for, who is very close to me and my family. I just would like to maintain the sponsorship of Mayor Bauer's street naming. Thank
happy
you.
to co-sponsor.
Thank you.
I'll co-sponsor too, but it's all yours.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the motion is just to add these two, none of the names that were suggested by the commission on
Correct.
remand? Okay, got it. And is there anybody who does not, it's been, motion, it's been seconded, does anybody not?
I think we're all in favor.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Stephanie, you'll let me know if there's ever any public comment.
Correct.
on
We have
things.
no public comment at this time.
Okay, so move that on, and then item number 16.
Item number 15 is discuss renaming Miami Beach Drive as the Miami Beach Promenade.
16, item number 16.
Sorry. 16, sorry. Discuss take action on Outfront Media Group contract.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, that's your item.
Okay, I was actually wanting to defer this item while I spoke to the people from Outfront Media that I have not had the opportunity to do. They haven't reached out to me. I would say, though, that it has been years trying to get new bus stops, and we have not been able to get them. And I know that Commissioner Dominguez, you've said that you've heard complaints.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. So the initial renderings that have come out about the bus stops, the residents have been underwhelmed. They feel that our city is iconic, and these bus stops and bus shelters should be iconic in a similar fashion that our lifeguard stands are. And some of them, they felt that the bus stops, people wait so long there, and there wasn't the necessary protection from rain and the sun. Jose, did you have any other comments?
No, thank you, Madam Chair, for sharing those concerns from the community. We've been working with Outfront throughout the design process for some time. The concept design, the conceptual design was approved by the Design Review Board and by the Historic Preservation Board back in late 2022. At that point, and based on those approved concepts, Outfront embarked on the design, the final design. They've since completed the final design. They're actually in the process of manufacturing the first shelter, which is called the prototype. And that prototype is in essence the mold for all the other shelters that will be installed. So I was not aware of
Yeah, I'll
of
send you
those
specifics on what I've received from residents, but the sponsor would like it continued to the next meeting.
Yeah, I would just like to keep this on the agenda so that as the prototype is developed, we already have a place where we can see the prototype, look at it, find out what the construction timeline is going to be, see if it, if they are, if we agree with the prototype or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So we'll continue this item, and then as a point of order, the last item, the street name, since Commissioner Bott is not on the committee, she cannot make the motion. Kirsten, okay, so the person making the motion will be Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Item number 15.
Item number 15, discuss renaming Miami Beach Drive as Miami Beach Promenade.
That Commissioner Alex Fernandez has been working with the Mid-Beach Neighborhood Association on this item. Do you have any comments before Transportation speaks on it?
This is a request of the neighborhood association there, and we do like to give deference to the neighbors of the area. If this is something that the neighbors want, I will support. I do think that there is a certain level of history to Miami Beach Drive. It was a street. It was a street that, I don't know if you have some of the historical data or information on it, but I do think that, the name Miami Beach Drive is a nod to the history of our city and the original platting of the city, now it's different. It's no longer a street used for vehicles, and it is more of a promenade for pedestrians. So this is what the neighbors want. I'll go with it. I'll support it at commission. It's not my preference because I do feel that there is a historical context to the name of Miami Beach Drive and the original platting of the city. But I'll give deference to the neighbors of the area.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Well, no amendment to our ordinance is needed for this street, is my understanding. So let's send it back to commission. I know that MBNA supports this item, and then we'll have a full discussion at the next commission meeting.
And the only thing I'd suggest through the chair is that perhaps when it goes to commission, if there is historical information as it relates to Miami Beach Drive and why it has that name now, perhaps that'd be good for us to have as we engage in our decision making.
Great points. Okay, are my
Is there-
colleagues, committee members okay with that? Oh, public comment on this, please.
If we could please unmute Wayne Roberts. Wayne Roberts, you have 2 minutes.
I just wanted to say that I'm not hearing you well. Like, I tried the phone and I tried just through the Wi-Fi, but either one, the sound volume is very low. So I just wanted to alert whoever the audiovisual guy is, they got to increase the volume somehow. That's all. I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking on the issue.
Thank you. We will
Thank
let
you.
them know.
All right, so we'll move that item. I think Commissioner Suarez had one last comment about the 63rd Street Bridge item.
Yeah. Was that motion just for 63rd? Can we also apply that for the Venetian Bridge? I guess it just goes to commission anyways. We can make a motion there, but I'd want to also apply it to the Venetian Bridge, the 90 minutes or 60 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to change your motion, or you'd like to reconsider your motion? Is there a second for that?
It's just for the, we discussed it only, we only discussed the 63rd Street Bridge, but the Venetian also has.
Oh, okay.
The Venetian Bridge also
Yeah, I
has.
didn't hear that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there any objection
Oh,
to that?
the
amended
90
motion?
minutes instead of every hour.
Signature Bridge looks good in our portfolio.
Yeah. Okay, item 12.
Okay, item 12 is discuss options for the potential relocation of the bus stop currently located on the west side of Indian Creek, immediately north of 41st Street, in order to urge Miami-Dade County to implement the best available relocation options and mitigate the traffic congestion resulting from frequent stops at this location. To significantly impede the flow of traffic at the southbound right turn lane of Indian Creek Drive and 41st Street.
Okay, Jose?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we've taken a deep look at this issue and this bus stop and where it's located, and a few interesting points. It's actually one of the busiest bus stops that we have in our city, and it's extremely busy because it serves as a transfer point between various county bus routes, about 5 different county bus routes and 2 trolley routes. We then looked at the possibility of relocating that stop, whereby it's not situated, and where it is, which requires the bus to stop on the right turn lane along southbound Indian Creek, which we all know is a very heavy movement. So we took a look at that, and unfortunately, because of the geography of our city, how Collins Avenue dead ends at 44th Street and meets Indian Creek Drive, and then 41st Street being such an important transit corridor, that area between 44th Street and 41st is the only area where a transfer point could be situated. And so even if we move it a little further north or a little further south, it would need to be between 44th and 41st, which would still place it in a very inconvenient location blocking the right turn lane. So we then looked at the area, and if you're familiar with the area, there's a swale. There's a swale area there, which is actually privately owned. And so one option could be to try to get this bus shelter, or more so the buses, out of the way of the travel lane, is to look into acquiring that parcel and then building a bus bay alongside the bus shelter. The bus shelter would have to be relocated further west towards the canal, the Indian Creek Canal. But if it's possible to do that and create a bus bay, the bus can then get out of the travel lanes and not be in the way.
Okay, so can the city, I read the item here, and the conclusion was that more exploration was needed in order to give us coordination and approval, and now you're talking about the parcel as well. Can you provide us with an LTC of what those conclusions are?
Absolutely.
Do the committee members have any comments? Non-committee members?
The non-committee member has a comment.
Okay.
There is an item that was referred to the Finance Committee. You're nodding your head. I guess you are aware of that item.
Yes.
You are aware of it.
You are the sponsor.
Yes. On acquiring or seeing the possibility of acquiring specifically what you just mentioned, on acquiring those outlots. And so I'm not sure when we're hearing that at finance, but that referral was made. Yeah, I had spoken with MBNA about that. I know MBNA had some concerns about removing green space with hard surface to accommodate a bus stop in those outlots. But I do think still it is a discussion we need to have, given the severe impacts that the bus stop does have on traffic backup. So just
Okay,
wanted to
so,
put that for the
yeah,
record.
thank you. So that item, part of it will be heard at finance, and any other conclusions, if you would send the committee members an LTC, I'd appreciate that. All in favor on the committee? And Rob, did you have a comment?
No, you're gonna close that out.
Yeah, close that out. Okay, item number 20.
Item number 20 is to discuss best use for property located at 7605 Collins Avenue.
Vice Chair Suarez.
I'll let Elizabeth tee this up.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and committee members. Elizabeth Muro, Interim Director for Facilities and Fleet Management. On March 13th, the city did acquire the property located at 7605 Collins Avenue. The property was purchased with Building Department Fund. So because of this, it is restricted to a principal use just for the Building Department. However, we can use other secondary uses to the building so long as those are rented out. And one of the uses that we have contemplated is to have a community facility for the Altazamar Park.
For the what? Oh, okay. So what kind of community center? Through the chair. What kind of community center?
It would be like a park facility, a small park facility, if there's any other options that could be contemplated.
Yeah, I know that this particular item, and sorry if you just said that, I got a text that interrupted here. Because the building, the property was purchased using building department reserves, 51% of it needs to be for building department uses, and then the other can be for other city uses. And then if parks wanted to use it, they could pay rent in order to fund the building department reserves to ensure that we're complying with the law.
That's correct.
Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez.
How can we remove the requirement of the 51%? Would we have to pay the building department back a certain amount of money and then we could take over? Because we're in the process right now of doing a national search for a city manager. Many of us have said that we would like somebody who lived in the city. What better to have like a Gracie mansion of sorts, where as part of this process, we offer that house. Hey, you want to be a city manager? You live that is a hotbed of criminal activity too, with homelessness, and put them right there in the middle of the park. And guess what? I guarantee you, Eric, if you're living over there, the problem will get solved. You know, because
Is
you're
that a
not going to
motion?
want to walk out of your, you're not going to want to, you know, walk out of your back door and see all of this activity. So I think that putting the city manager in that property is probably one of the smartest moves that we can make. It stays residential. I don't know how you feel about it, but we did want somebody who lived in the city. Many people might say, it's just an option. I'm throwing it out there. I don't know how you feel about it.
Commissioner Magazine.
I actually love the idea. I don't know if that's the exact location for it, but for all the money that we spend, and we've all said, not just this commission, but going back to the last city manager search, that we had a strong preference, and that commission had even contemplated a requirement for the city manager to live in our city. For all the reasons that we've talked about, maybe we do look at acquiring or converting a property we already have into some sort of home for a city manager to be able to live here. I don't know if it's this Betsy Perez property, but actually like the idea. Perhaps somewhere close to City Hall, perhaps this property. But in terms of the requirement of the building department to get 51% of the revenues, we're just talking about like cost center accounting, right, Eric? Where essentially, if we would say this is going to be a community center managed by Parks and Rec could essentially pay the building department some sort of, so it's just intergovernmental fund accounting.
So I would want to defer that to our CFO, but my understanding is that because the building department fund is an enterprise fund that's set up by state statute, there would be some requirements that we need to make sure that we follow.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea also, Commissioner Gonzalez, that we have a place that possibly that the next city manager can live in, and I like the idea of that you put. It really is the neighborhood needs help, and if you put the city manager there, like it's gonna be completely different in 6 months. But yeah, that being said, I think we should keep our options open. I'm not married to the idea, but it's certainly very interesting. But I think we should do whatever we can to open up the option for many uses of that building. I certainly don't want to just limit it to building department use. So what do we need to do to change that?
So again, I would defer that to our CFO to make sure that we're doing it properly, but we would probably have to pay back the building department for the purchase of the property.
Wait, real quick, Commissioner Bott had a comment.
I think having a city manager residence is a very cool idea. I'm not sure that's the place for it. Perhaps building a condo, or not a condo, but a cool apartment on the top of the South Shore Community Center, like the amazing apartment on top of 1111, which is iconic, could be pretty cool. Be that as it may, I think there are a couple things. One of the things we talked about on this property was having a sort of outpost of City Hall services for North Beach residents. And I still think that that is a very useful way to engage that property. Tangentially related, we have the log cabin. I know Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, you've an item talking about prioritizing.
Want to put them in the log cabin?
No.
Build you a log cabin.
No, but there, we need to get that built and used. Again, there's conversation, I'm the only person on the commission who lives in North Beach, and there's a lot of conversation about what's happening with that part of the neighborhood and the facilities and what can be used, what the use of the Betsy Perez house can be versus what the log cabin can be and what happens with the West Lots. These are all interrelated conversations. And so I don't want to lose the opportunity of having services available to North Beach in that house if we can create a community center based around, or like an educational center based around the log cabin. I don't want to divert one use when we have an opportunity to create that use with a different structure. And I also think that it's all well and good for us to talk about what we think the best result would be for the use of that land, that property, and the log cabin and the west lots. But if we don't have community input, we are just literally talking to ourselves. So I would urge that we have a community conversation and tie these all together. I know Commissioner Fernandez had the West Lots conversation scheduled, which was moved because of conflicts of meetings, so we want to make sure that all of us can be there, not just a couple of us, and that got, people were eviscerated for having the temerity to not have that meeting. So I think we should do a comprehensive North Beach community access conversation about here are the 3 opportunities we have. West Lots, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the whole one big meeting, but West Lots, log cabin, Altos Del Mar house. What is the best use of these 3 things that can possibly be conjoined in some way to be a comprehensive, holistic approach? Because as a city, as administration for years, we do things, spot zoning this and spot appropriating that and spot. And that doesn't serve us well. But we now have 3 different things that tie in together to one contiguous stretch of a neighborhood that is wildly underserved, and we can do lots of different things. And so I would very strongly recommend that we look at them as a holistic grouping of opportunities to do lots of different things and get the community to.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
So I would make a motion, 2 different things. Number 1, to keep this item on and have Eric come back at the next meeting and find out how we remove the building department requirement. Because when we purchased that house, I don't think any of us said, oh, we want 51% of that to be the building department. And in the interim, also, between meetings, we would like to hold a North Beach community meeting, and with all of those items on the agenda, have a community discussion. No harm in that. But I have a third thing, too. Are you getting all of this?
Yes, I'm writing also,
Okay.
and Jason Green just
And the third thing that I would
is-
propose is that we send to the commission the idea of purchasing a city manager residence over the next 6 months. As much as I would love to build a penthouse on top of the South Shore Community Center,
It would be cool.
it would. We can't seem to get the log cabin done though, so one thing at a time. The rotunda took like 10 years. I was very happy about that. But I would, get with a specific budget, how would you feel about, and that's what we would have to decide right now. We would send it to the commission, and between now and then, figure out a budget for the city managers. For Miami Beach's Gracie Mansion, we could call it Maddie's Mansion, or whatever, someplace. Although I will say that you do have a single-family home in an area that is blighted, and it's not the worst thing in the world for this first few years of trying to figure it out, of if you want to attract top, whatever talent we're attracting, and we have this requirement to live in the city, to take a house that is not ADA compliant, and you're going to have to create that ADA compliance in order to use it, which is difficult. I mean, you'll have all sorts of, you're going to have to, it's going to take a while to accommodate that house. But we do have something right here, right now, that could be used as a tool to attract a manager that lives in the city. So should we send it to the commission and have a
Yes.
discussion there? The whole item, or just the idea of purchasing a city manager's
whole
property?
item.
76,
All the
discuss
options.
all the options? Okay, all 3 items are going to commission.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you. I just want to go on record, since I'm sitting here, listening to this conversation. I fully support using this property for other uses that are not limited or exclusive to the building department, even if that means having to pay rent to the building enterprise fund for either parks uses. I know some of the neighbors have spoken about parks and police use potentially, and I do agree with Commissioner Tanya Abad on having some sort of community meeting to really solicit that feedback. I do think we need to perhaps proceed with a little bit of pause on utilizing a property, a city asset, for the residency of a charter officer. We have many charter officers, not just city manager. We have many charter officers that in the past we've expressed a preference to have as residents of the city. And I think, the more professional approach is to offer a housing stipend as opposed to getting city property and making it into residency for a charter officer. These are individuals with lives and unique circumstances, you know, with children or no children or elderly relatives, and everyone's personal needs as to where they live are very different. And that's perhaps something where the employer doesn't need to cross into to dictate specifically where within the city they live, but perhaps might more appropriately handle that by offering a stipend as part of any contract that we consider in the future. I just had to go on record on that since the discussion's being had.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez, and I don't disagree with that, but we're sending this item then to the full commission to discuss, and we can move on to the next item.
Jason Green's here.
One of the questions was.
How can we get rid of the 51%, Jason?
Thank you for giving me a minute to catch my breath. So it was around, I think it was around $6.6 million was the total acquisition costs. So if you were to remove all restrictions to use it for more general fund purposes, such as Parks and Rec as an example, or community center, they would have to be purchased basically by the general fund. I would have to check with the city attorney's office to make sure at the very minimum it would have to be at the full amount, because we couldn't, you know, we don't want to, from a good faith perspective, you know, it wasn't a bridge loan, you know, from our building department, you know, to meet the need there. I know we had a full discussion at FERC with a unanimous recommendation and then to the commission. The primary use would be a licensing permitting center. But I did have some discussions with a few members, you know, the idea that, you know, obviously a full remodel, it's a one-bedroom house, just as a note. It's a large, if those have been there, it's a large one-bedroom on the top and a small office on the side. But the idea, there was ideas about the CRA, which currently, you know, sublets space to have space there that could be easily segregated out. There's a studio with its own separate entrance that could be used for that, or another department very easily, I think, without infringing on those abilities to make sure, again, we have to segregate out the square footage and the rent would be paid back. I think another idea that I had heard was to ensure that the building department perhaps had built a conference room that would be there, which would obviously be used when a resident was coming in with plans and could sit with building inspectors or officials and sit there and go through documents. But that being a general conference room might be available. There was a request if, you know, elected officials wanted to meet with some area residents or something like that. I think that could easily be accommodated with no, you know, financial impact in there. But if it was a complete redo, I think that would be a different situation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Quickly, Jason, if the building department would retain 51% ownership, but only physically occupy 25% and actually lease out 26% to Parks and Rec, they're still owning it, they're receiving revenue into their enterprise fund. That still maintains that they have that ownership, they're just receiving rent payments?
I'd have to, that would be a discussion with the city attorney, and just as a note, I know there were issues in the past about general fund usage of things that were paid for by the building department that involved an OIG investigation that I don't think was very favorable, so we'd have to really tread lightly in here. And I think the idea should be that we, you know, eyes wide open, was, and again, remember there's a commission-approved capital project to acquire a property, which was now fulfilled with this purchase, to build a North Beach licensing and permitting center for people to go and do walk-in stuff. And again, whether there was a small desk in the side for code compliance complaints or to pick up a parking certificate or a CRA, I think that all of those are easily accommodatable within that. But if you're going to go into basically making the whole thing a Parks and Rec facility to run daycare out of there or something like that, that's obviously a complete change in that. So I'd be wary of working on a model where, you know, again, equity things along that doesn't really work so much, I think, in the governmental fund sector. So I'd be wary of that.
Okay, Rob, what is the motion on the table so we can move on?
I don't know that there is a motion.
So Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez, can you repeat it, please?
We're sending this discussion 7605 to the full commission. We're going to have a North Beach community meeting, which we don't need to send to the full commission. We can just set that up. And Jason, you're going to come back to this committee or the full commission with options as how we, or the best way.
Well, I think you need to determine what the usage is. So
yeah.
It's easy. You just have to buy it, quite honestly. So that $6.5 million would As we discussed, and I think that's why at FERC, they were very concerned about, as I would say, quote unquote, blowing up the capital program for 25. And considering our pay-go millage only generates $4 million, if we did this, this would mean, I hope there'd be no interest in any capital projects next year, because this would take up probably 50% of the kind of the pay-go cost, because there was some rollover from prior years. So just know that would be impacted. I know there are several parks projects that commissioners have reached out.
You can find that. You can, remember, Commissioner Richardson, you can shake that money tree, Jason, and figure it out. I'm sure.
No, and I say it absolutely can be done. It's just there would be less capital dollars available to complete capital projects.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, maybe for next year, we focus on these GeoBond projects that we haven't completed, which will, free up some of, the CIP stuff. I know these are smaller projects and budgeted. Okay, so I have to make a motion, and I need everybody. I know we have the community meeting. We have the potential repurchase of the 6 million, creative ways to do that, and to move this forward, the conversation about 7605 to the full commission. Is this the motion?
All in favor?
Is everybody okay with this?
Okay.
Oh, and we're going to discuss the city manager situation when we have the meeting and we discuss the search process. I think we'll bring it into
Tomorrow.
the discussion then.
Okay, thank you. Any comment?
Who was the second on that?
I'll second it. Yeah. Okay, so item number 4.
Item number
You know what,
4.
before we do item number 4, I'm gonna jump to item number 2 so that the transportation department can leave, and since Commissioner Fernandez is here. So item number 2.
Okay.
Item number 2 is to discussion regarding access to Mount Sinai Medical Center for North Beach residents.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an item I placed on the agenda because, as many of you might recall, as a result of the Better Bus Network that was put into place by the county, there was the elimination of Route 115. And that Route 115 is what provided connectivity for residents living north of 63rd Street to be able to access Mount Sinai using this Mid-North Beach connection. It went from as far north, I believe, as 88th Street, Route 115, along Collins Avenue southward up to Mount Sinai, which is an important hub for employment and health services. Route 115 also went further south, actually, all the way to Lincoln Road and Washington Avenue. Ever since it was taken away, a large segment of our community was left without service. I know a number of us have heard from them. I think, Madam Chair, you've also taken leadership meeting with neighbors that have been impacted by that. I placed a referral to the Transportation, Parking, and Bicycle Pedestrian Facilities Committee at the December 13th meeting to come up with recommendations as to how to replace this, a possible expansion of the trolley service or some sort of expansion of freebie. Right now, I believe, Jose, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a freebie service that is offering a certain level of connectivity, but in my opinion, from the complaints I've received, that freebie on-demand service is not enough, and it's not the same level of service as a permanent route. A permanent route that can facilitate the transportation of more of our residents. And so we've asked them to work with Miami-Dade County on seeing what could be done to actually put in place a permanent route to replace the 115. And Jose, I want to recognize you to present us with the department's recommendation.
Before he does, I'm just going to make a few little comments. Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. And yes, I've had several meetings with the North Beach residents that use the trolley service and the transportation department, and they gave a great feedback to transportation on adjusting the route so it better fits the residents' needs in that area, and so transportation is exploring that. I also heard from the senior building, Stella Maris and Oatmeal kindly had conversations and met with one of the leaders in that building, and they're making the trolley, what's it? The Vespa? No.
The freebie.
The
Tesla,
freebie,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah, we don't want a senior on the Vespa. So the that available to them. So that's going in the right direction. And then I also received communication from the county that on April 29th, new bus services are coming out to help address some of the challenges that we had. So, and I think there's a Zoom meeting or something coming up very quickly about that. But Jose, if you would further elaborate.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. So as Commissioner Fernandez pointed out, at the February committee meeting of this body, we presented some data that showed that the additional freebie vehicle that is being funded by the county to a certain extent mitigate the elimination of Route 115. The data shows that the demand is not being met, particularly in the afternoon peaks. There are a lot of cancellations that occur during the afternoon peaks, and there's just unsatisfied demand. So at the February committee meeting, the committee asked us to work with the county and explore other solutions, and we've been doing that over the past couple months, and I'm pleased to report that the county has agreed to increase their funding contribution and such that we can provide a 14-passenger van, also operated by Tesla, though not an electric vehicle, but not Tesla, sorry, Freebie, operated by Freebie. But the 14-passenger van has much higher capacity than the Tesla X vehicle, and we believe will more adequately satisfy the demand, particularly in the morning and the PM peaks. So this van would operate 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., mirroring the same operational hours that Route 115 had. And it would operate on a fixed route and fixed schedule like the Route 115 did, which means it would not be on demand. People would not need to call or go on the app to request a ride. They would just need to be at the bus stop.
That's great news. Thank you so much for that. Commissioner Fernandez?
Thank you so much. And so, Jose, and again, thank you for your work with this. So this van would go up to Mount Sinai?
Correct. It would go from the northern limit where the Route 115 would used to go, which
88th
is
Street.
87th or 88th. Let me pull the map.
88th Street.
88th Street. From 88th Street to Mount Sinai.
Okay. And so let me ask you this, because I believe that one of the important things is not just, making sure that we get connectivity to Mount Sinai, as important as that might be, but also up to 41st Street. I think at 41st Street is where we have Route 120 that connects to the airport, that also connects then to the Orange Line, and that provides that greater network, not just for our residents, also for our workforce and our tourism. Would it be possible to get this route and have it connect up to 41st Street to make sure that we're providing connectivity to the wider transportation network to the residents in North Beach?
Commissioner, I do believe that would be a feasible option, if you will. We do just need to run it by the county to make sure it's okay, because the route, the alignment needs to be part of an agreed upon agreement with the county. But yes. I think establishing that connection to Route 150, which is the Airport Express, goes all the way to the airport, would be a prudent connection to make.
Great.
Thank you. And so what I will ask Jose is if you would provide us with an LTC with Commissioner Fernandez's request of the connection to 41st Street on that van. And I would also like in that LTC information on whether that amendment to the trolley routes is approved and when that can be implemented, the amendments that were recommended by the residents.
Sure.
In one of our meetings. Yes, Commissioner Magazine.
Thank you. Jose, my understanding, the freebie, it's on-demand kind of ad hoc service, picks you up where you request. It's going to take you where you request. Has there ever been any thought or consideration given into utilizing a mobile similar to the Freebie, which is smaller, more nimble, quicker in some type of fixed route? Not to replace the trolley system, but in supplement, because the trolleys are very bulky. I understand the need for them for ADA compliances and to move larger masses of people. But as a supplement, instead of adding more and more trolleys, have we thought about something that would be more nimble, maybe doesn't impact traffic so greatly, and are more accessible, kind of quicker on, quicker off? Because one of the problems that I see with the trolleys is, yes, they are moving people, but it comes at a great cost as well, not just financially, but they tie up traffic because it takes a while to board. They are larger and bulkier. So is there something smaller and more nimble that we've ever explored as a supplement?
Well, one thing that I'll mention before Jose answers is I believe that there's an RFP right now for a new trolley system to replace the trolleys, something more modern and better for the city. But Jose, if you
That's correct. And micro-mobility, which is the type of vehicle that a Freebie Tesla would fall under, is definitely part of the transportation portfolio, if you will. There's definitely a niche for it in our city. It provides, it's a service that provides good first mile, last mile connectivity to the trolley service and to the county regional bus service. So, and which is why we're using it for the Mid-Beach residential communities. The micromobility type of service is very fitting for a low demand area. So you've got your higher transit vehicle, your higher capacity transit vehicles operating along the main arteries, and then you've got smaller vehicles operating in the, in the pockets of single family residential neighborhoods, for example, to provide that first mile, last mile, and provide some sort of public transit service in those neighborhoods so people don't have to use their cars to get to public transit. So absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so we'll move on to number 4.
Item number 4 is to discuss Unidad bathrooms open daily.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
So I'm sure that, I know that we received an email from the board saying, please keep the bathrooms closed. That's fine. I understand why. Right now, the city is not in charge of the bathrooms. Unidad is in charge of maintaining those bathrooms, correct?
That's correct. We maintain those restrooms.
Okay, they do.
We do.
We do.
We do.
Okay, here's the problem. If they're closed, what are people using?
They're using the Altos Del Mar restroom, which has an open floor plan and is only 0.2 miles away.
Okay, then I'm done with the item. We can just close it out.
Okay, so, Commissioner Bott?
I mean, I'd like to.
I'm
The
sorry.
item's closed.
Well, I'm surprised because I've gotten a lot of calls about this as well. So I know there is another bathroom facility 0.2 miles away, but if we're managing the Unidad bathrooms, the way it was laid out to me by one person in particular, she made an excellent point. We, the taxpayers of Miami Beach, paid for them. We maintain them. And yet, we only open the Unidad bathrooms on the weekends when most of the beach users are people who are driving in from other parts, which is great. That's awesome. But if we have residents who have paid with their tax dollars to make those facilities available, why wouldn't they be available more than just when there are more people coming in from out of town?
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Okay.
Whenever the chair wants.
Listen, I've had a lot of people ask me to be able to use those bathrooms, and so I was really disappointed when the administration came back and said, we can't do it. I would like to see you do it. Why can't you maintain the bathrooms? Put a security guard there, clean them up, make sure that they're in good state. Unidad is so afraid that we won't be able to do it that they don't want to allow us to do it. But if facilities management maintains these bathrooms and make sure that they're in good state and they're secure, then Unidad would not have a problem.
Yeah,
Their big
true.
problem is that we can't seem to get it done.
Through the chair, if I'm...
Commissioner Fernandez, he had raised his hand first.
Perhaps, and thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps a recommendation could be, let's test it. Let's not commit to it. Let's test it. Because I have received myself the complaint from individuals, and I also understand the other side, So why don't we test it to see how well it works out? with us maintaining the bathroom, see if there are any unintended consequences. Do we start to have people, congregating there and showering there or not? And see if we can address the requests from the community. Now, the other thing I would say is that I've received similar requests, similar complaints about other parts of the city. Like, for example, at Pride Park. At Pride Park, we have a bathroom, and that bathroom was not open. I don't know if that one got solved or not, but if we have public facilities like parks and we're offering restrooms at the parks, it should be open to the public because it limits people's ability to be able to use a public space. So I agree with what my colleagues are stating. What I would suggest is before we marry ourselves to a permanent plan, maybe let's try for 3 months and perhaps come back to the committee with an update and see if we should send a recommendation to continue it permanently.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Okay.
Very quickly, I promise. The other thing, and this is a bigger issue, not directly related to the item before us, but that entrance point to Altos Del Mar Park is at many times of the day intimidating. There are people who congregate there who don't have kids going to the park, they're not going to the beach. I've not witnessed drug deals, but I hear they happen constantly. There are folks who, I wouldn't want to go to that northern bathroom unless I had to. And so for folks who might be walking to Unidad at their turnaround point, who may not be young and spry and feeling like they want to run the gauntlet of the folks who are a little more intimidating at the public bathrooms a little further up. It's not the distance as much as it is sort of the character of what's going on around there. So I second that plan to do a pilot program.
Okay, so.
Well, you can't vote.
No,
here.
I know, I'm just seconding the
Okay.
plan, I'm not voting.
Okay,
Yeah.
does
So
anyone?
who do I need? Okay. You guys can do it, right?
Okay, and BPD wants to
can-
make a comment?
Yes.
Just a quick comment.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Assistant Chief De La Espriella with the PD. So just as a reminder, and I know that's in the analysis, but the reason why they were closed initially was because of the public safety issues that we were having there in terms of congregating, in terms of all kinds of activity that was occurring. And the request to close them came from Unidad's patrons, and the surrounding neighborhoods. So I just want to make sure that you understand that that's the history of this facility. And I know that in the presentation, that it talks about what would be required from our perspective to maintain that public safety, which is to ensure that there be the guards present, park ranger assigned, and a city contractor, which obviously has a cost associated with that. But this, just as, to remind you all that this was closed because of
Thank you.
a lot of resident complaints.
Thank you. I did not receive any complaints from people wanting the bathroom open. I did receive many emails from people wanting to have it remained closed. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
So I would make a motion, because I think we do have support here and there is a need for bathrooms. I would make a motion to open them, pilot program, for how long?
3
you think?
months.
3 months. We're gonna reopen them, and it's gonna, if you have to put a park ranger or security guard, it's very sad, and, the maintenance, because we're going against the Unidad board here to serve the community. So, we want those bathrooms maintained and safe. All right?
That's your motion?
That would be my motion.
Okay, Commissioner Magazine?
Second.
Okay, I'm a no on this one. And then we'll move the item on.
Okay.
Okay, number 25.
But with point of information, if I may. When there's, with 2 votes, then the item is not recommended. What is the,
Need the other committee member, because it could be a fail. Commissioner Suarez, you are a member of this committee. Can you come here, because we need your vote on keeping the bathrooms open with the park ranger and security detail for 3 months pilot. Will you vote for that, please? It's an Unidad pilot program for 3 months, keeping the bathrooms open with a park ranger, security guard, facilities management, working on it. We've had a lot of requests. I didn't put this on here, casually, because people from the community have asked me to do this. So we'll do a pilot for 3 months. Okay, good. You know what? I forget that there's 4 people on
Right,
the board.
I did too.
Who is on the committee? Because we're all here. I don't even know.
From Suarez
Who
to
is?
you.
Okay.
It's-
Okay. So Suarez Magazine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you have
I'm just
Laura
crashing the
Dominguez,
party.
David Suarez,
Well, you had a couple
Kristen
items.
Rosen Gonzalez,
And you wanted to
Joseph
yell at me at the
Magazine.
beginning. Okay, item 25.
Okay, item 25, to discuss the motions made by the Ad hoc Iguana Remediation Advisory Committee at its March 14, 2023 meeting.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Frank Garcia, Facilities Management Division Director, for the record. The first motion made at that March 14th, 2023 meeting of the Ad hoc Iguana Remediation Advisory Committee was recommend that the city provide tangible responses to inquiries referencing iguana remediation on private property. With regard to private property, our city attorney's office has drafted a private property access agreement should the city assume the responsibility to remediate iguanas on private property. At current, the city only addresses iguanas on city-owned properties. However, the city's primary iguana remediation vendor offers a discounted rate for Miami Beach residents and property managers. The second motion made by the Ad hoc Iguana Committee was recommend that the city provide tangible results in terms of negotiating with and ensuring accountability of contractors so that they are paid per iguana. During the negotiation process, our staff conferred with partner agencies such as Florida Fish and Wildlife Council, as well as the government of the Cayman Islands, and they actually recommended against establishing a per carcass award. They instead favored establishing an award based on an established monthly rate per location. To ensure accountability, the awarded contractor will be required to provide us with monthly reports detailing man hours, funds expended, and quantity of iguanas exterminated per location. Again, the third motion was recommend that the city set up a hotline or a website that residents can access to have iguanas removed from private property. At current, residents can obtain information on iguana remediation through a link on the city's website, access through our resident portal on the city's main webpage. And with regard to that dedicated hotline, our IT department has recommended adding an option on the city's main helpline, 604 City, where they can be connected directly with the city's iguana remediation contractor. I understand that measure would carry no fiscal impact and can be implemented with relative ease.
Thank you. So this item was placed on the Neighborhoods Committee in May of 2023. The ad hoc Iguana Committee is set to sunset in a couple months. I don't think that any additional appropriation should be made to the iguanas, and I do agree with the city recommendation on adding that point to the hotline since there's no cost. So that would be the motion. My committee members in favor?
Yeah, I would, through the chair, I'd just like to commend Madam Chair for how swiftly over the past few months she's getting to these. The fact that we're seeing items here, that these committees dedicate their time, and they made a recommendation over a year ago and haven't been heard. I want to applaud you for, recognizing these.
Thank you for that. All right, so all in favor?
Hold on.
Commissioner,
Comment.
Vice Chair Suarez?
It's okay. I actually just attended the Animal Welfare Committee meeting yesterday, and iguanas was one of the subjects. Who made the recommendation to not count by carcass? Was it the contractor?
The recommendation came from conversations had with different partner agencies, including Florida Fish and Wildlife, as well as another body we spoke to was a government of the Cayman Islands, and they see foul play when it's a per carcass award is what historically they've seen foul play.
How?
Either breeding operations where folks come with iguanas that were not originally where
Got it. Okay.
I would congratulate you guys because since we increased our funding to, how much are we spending right now? 250,000?
400.
435,000.
435,000. I've stopped receiving the complaints about the iguana, so it does seem like whatever that we are doing is working. So congratulations, because this was a constant.
It was.
A few years
It got
ago,
so
right?
bad.
It was just emails every single day, and the problem was out of control. So congratulations.
And so is the, you
Vice
know.
Chair?
Thank you. One of the members at the Animal Welfare Committee said if we could have a website also dedicated for iguanas on our website. I think we have it for mosquitoes. So if you have like a mosquito problem, they'll come and they'll fumigate your place for free. But do we have a website now if we have an iguana problem in someone's backyard that they can go?
At current, there's a link on our webpage that's accessed through the resident portal, and then there's like an animal control. And then you get redirected to information about iguana remediation services.
So if I was to go on Miami Beach's website, type in iguana, would I access that?
Yes.
The query would probably yield you.
And so basically the idea is because we only serve the public properties, the city's own properties, residents do also have the access through the city's contractor where they can get discounted rate to address the iguana problems on their own private properties.
So I don't know how the rest of my colleagues feel, but I'd like to make a motion for communications to send out an email or possibly a text message to all residents. If you're experiencing an invasive iguana problem, you can call this number or visit this website to learn more.
I second that item.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any discussion from the public? Stephanie? Okay, let's then move on to item number 9.
Item number 9 is update on the discussion regarding boat charter activity at the Miami Beach Marina and the recurring quality of life concerns occurring at or near the marina parking areas and or surrounding areas.
So this item was initially put on the agenda in 2022. So I think a lot has changed already in the boat charter activities and quality of life. So we can close this one out. Okay, all in favor?
Agreed.
All right, so next one is item number 22.
Item number 22 is discuss 1040 Collins Senior Center amenities.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez?
So I'm sure during your political campaign, you had the opportunity to either, stop by at 5th and Collins or 10th and Collins. Their laundry rooms were closed. Can you
Their
imagine?
cafeterias were
Their
closed.
cafeteria's been closed. There's no senior lunchroom open. And I just want to know, the pandemic happened. It's done. Can we open their lunchroom? I want their laundry rooms working again. When a senior told me, literally a 90-year-old person told me that in a city building, they have to go to the laundromat because they have no laundry room. To me, it was unacceptable. And I reached out to the administration several times, and I asked for help with this. And especially with Eric, you remember I called you desperately a few years ago and asked, and we can't seem to get it solved. So I would ask, number one, I would like a senior lunchroom reopened at either 5th and Collins or 10th and Collins. And we have to do it now because now is when they now is when the funds, the community block grant funds are being spent for the next year to fund these senior lunchrooms. And I'd like an update, if possible, on the laundry room situation, because I know they were under construction, and maybe it's...
And before...
Oh, and the AC wasn't working.
Right. I
At one
remember,
point.
Yeah. So I'll make a comment on that. So those two buildings, the senior buildings, 533 Collins and 1040 Collins, Council North and South, are privately owned, and they have been under construction, concrete restoration, redoing the balconies, redoing the elevators, and the cafeterias were closed in both centers because they needed a place to store construction items. The only one that had lunch being served was South. The 5th one, that was through the Little Havana Nutrition Center. The seniors are still getting their lunches, but it's sent to them individually. But that breaks up them not having camaraderie and having lunch with other people. They're now dining by themselves. So I share your concern, and I do want it open, and I'd love to hear from Alba what she knows about those private buildings.
Good afternoon, everyone. Alba Tarrea, Office of Housing and Community Services. The administration maintains ongoing communication with EDHOC, which is the Elderly Housing Development and Operations Corporations, which owns and manages the properties. to monitor the $26 million rehabilitations and its project's advancements. Since the memo submission of the item, Ad hoc has reported they have received a temporary certificate of completion of occupancy, which is a TCO, for the 2 towers comprising of the 250 units that have been rehabilitated. In reference to the amenities for the meals, you are correct, Madam Chair. The Little Havana Activity Center continues to provide delivered meals to participants while the community room is not available. In regards to the laundry services, the North Tower is 90% complete, and appliances were set to be delivered on April 15th, and that they have advised that they are awaiting electrical and mechanical inspections from the city. They expect the facility to be fully operational by May 7th. The South Tower laundry renovation will begin once the North Tower is complete. In reference to the AC, the air conditioning units are working in the hallways, units, and offices. For the South Tower, the new VRF HVAC is operable in 107 units. The remaining 18 units we were advised were activated on April 10th. For the corridors in floors 3 to 12, the HVAC is operable. The lobby area in corridor 2 is scheduled to be operable by April 30th. In reference to the North Tower, which is located at 1040 Collins, the HVAC for 60 units is currently in progress and scheduled to be completed by April 30th. So currently, those units have portable AC units. The HVAC is operable for corridors in floors 3 to 12, and the corridor in floor 2 and the lobby are scheduled to be completed by May 7th. We have been advised by Ad hoc that the contractor has advised them that they expect final completion of the project on or before July 11th.
Then resume in the cafeteria of Council South.
On or before the termination of the completion of the project on July 11th.
Okay, so that's going to be reopened. That was one of the reasons why I was pushing so hard to reopen the lunchroom at South Shore. I used to have 100 seniors that would have lunch at South Shore, 100 that would have lunch at Collins and Fifth, and those people really have no place to go now. Some of them do make it over to Rebecca Towers. So the lunchroom at Fifth and Collins is for sure going to open. And I did want to say, we don't own the buildings, but we own the land, correct? It's a land lease that they have. So we do have a little bit of influence over, I don't know what the maintenance agreement, we don't obviously have do we have a maintenance agreement with them?
We have a 99-year lease with them.
Okay, so it's our land, it's their, they're leasing it, but they've been pretty good cooperating with us. I would say that this has been terrible, and that I would ask the building department if they're waiting on inspections, mechanical and electric, to possibly expedite those inspections so that we can get the HVAC up and running as soon as possible. So maybe we can reach out to, we have Eric here, so we can, make sure that that happens expeditiously. And I guess we don't have to do anything else on this item.
Well, I would like, no, I don't want to keep it on, but I do want to get an LTC after each of the deadlines that you mentioned. So April 30th, if that was done, the July date, please send us information to the full commission, and we'll close this one out.
Can I just ask one question?
Commissioner Magazine.
Thank you both commissioners for your support in this. I'm going to deviate a little bit from here. And this isn't anything that we'll have sorted out here today, but maybe just asking my colleagues to think very strategically and high level. If we ever considered almost implementing a senior village, right, where we have all these piecemeal buildings, one on 3rd Street, one on 5th Street, one on 10th Street, some up in North Beach, how much better would it be for the community, for the senior community, to have all of these buildings essentially together, and then we'd be able to capitalize on economies of scale. We wouldn't have to have all these different senior lunchrooms, because we would be able to have these events together. We'd be able to have grander amenities for all of them instead of having these all piecemealed and sporadic throughout the city. It would almost be like our own mini villages within Miami Beach. So just a point of consideration, no action item, but I think that would really be beneficial to the quality of life and the well-being for our senior community.
Excellent to think about. Thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner Magazine. So now we're going to move on. I would like to have item 1 and item 26 called together. Item 1 is from 2020, and then item 26 is from 2024, but I think they can be combined. Hi, Sergeant. How you doing?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, so if Stephanie will call
I'll
the
read
items.
both items. Item number 1 is discussion regarding possible ways to improve the homeless issue in Miami Beach. And item number 26 is an update on enforcement of the city's amended camping ordinance, City Code Section 70-45.
Sergeant and Alba, whoever wants to speak first.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Alba Tarre, Office of Housing and Community Services again. Since the last homeless update in October, we have further augmented our services for our homeless population. We've expanded our bed availability at Camilla's House with 6 additional beds, and with the county's $125,000 that we allocate to Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust through the budget process, we have acquired 15 beds at a new provider at Riverside House. We also continue our partnership for specialized outreach with New Hope, Camilla's House for the Lazarus Program, and Camilla's Health Concern for medical outreach. In addition to our daily outreach efforts, we also conduct our weekly unified outreach with police, sanitation, park rangers, and code.
Wonderful. That's great news on the increase. I hadn't heard about that, so thank you for the information. Sergeant Berrien?
So as you all know, I am good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the dais. I am the sergeant of the Homeless Resource Unit, Sergeant Jim Realm Berrien. Most people call me Bear. My unit consists of me, myself, 2 day shift officers and 3 afternoon officers, along with a civilian, Bo Hall. Essentially, we address homeless issues that take extra resources. So we don't respond to just the homeless guy that may go into the store, or the homeless guy that's sleeping. Patrol will handle that. Operations will handle that. They'll respond to that. And if that homeless person needs some resources or is requesting additional resources, then my team will go out. So our goal is long-term help, not just a regular call for service. We periodically conduct roll call trainings to update officers on best practices, new laws. We most recently did it with the new ordinance, or the revised ordinance of camping, that we attended every roll call, answered questions, provided additional information for additional resources that we may use or utilize to handle our
And I'm just going to
homelessness.
stop you for one moment. So the first part that Alba and then the first part that you just mentioned satisfies item number 1 from 2020, so we're going to close that out. Now you're going to get into the information on the enforcement on the city's amended camping ordinance. And I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Suarez and Commissioner Magazine because they were the sponsors for that item. Or if you prefer to comment after he speaks with the camping update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually wasn't going to bring this up, but I commend our entire team for the efforts that they make on the homeless outreach. Actually, I think I just read an article where maybe some members of your team were physically assaulted down on 2nd or 3rd in Washington just in the past week. So I understand what you're dealing with and putting yourselves on the line. We're a compassionate city, and of course, we're going to provide every resource available for people that need it and people that are truly seeking it. But we also have another problem in the city, and that is people that want to live on our streets, not because they're down on their luck, but because they are here to prey on us. I wasn't going to bring this up, but a week ago, I came down to my condo building, and I found myself held at gunpoint by a homeless individual that broke into my house, broke into my car to steal things, and held me at gunpoint. And the brave men and women of the Miami Beach Police Department were there every step of the way, apprehended this suspect, who had a fully loaded weapon with a round in his chamber in his waistband. This person wasn't looking for help. He wasn't looking for resources. He was in our city to prey on our residents. No more, no less. He's been implicated in over 10 crimes just in the past 2 months. And he wouldn't have stopped if it weren't for the brave efforts of the men and women of the Miami Beach Police Department. So we really need to bifurcate our efforts. We need to dedicate resources to those people that need it and are seeking it. But we need to really go in eyes wide open and realize that is not the totality of the homeless population that is living here. It's an unfortunate reality that there are people here for no other purpose than to prey on our residents and our tourists. And I commend and applaud my colleagues that have taken legislative initiatives over the past couple of years to address this, because we cannot solely put this at the feet of the Miami Beach Police Department. We need to take legislative reactions and think what it is about our city that is so great, but is also providing a safe haven for these people to prey upon our residents and our tourists alike. Because my goal in running, and I know many of my colleagues, is to make Miami Beach the greatest place in the world to live, to work, to visit, and to raise a family. And we can't have incidents like this if we want that all to be true. So I really, really thank our homeless outreach, because we saw just last week, you're putting yourselves on the line. You're putting yourselves in danger. And again, I'll address it, at some other point, but truly thank you for the men and women for the Miami Beach Police Department for the incident of the person, the homeless individual that's preying upon our community.
Thank you. Vice Chair Suarez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last time we spoke about this, I think there was only 20 or 25 arrests made for the new camping ordinance. Has that changed at all?
I believe the number that we have today is 28 as of 4/13.
28?
Yes.
Since the first of the year?
So that number comes in from October 1st to 4/13. So it's essentially from the first of the year, because the ordinance, I believe, was implemented October 18th. We did our training. We got people out around sometime in December, the end of December, beginning of January. So from essentially beginning of the year till April 13th, 28 arrests.
Which is generally the same number. I think at the last commission meeting when this item came up, that was the same number. And if I remember correctly, I think there was a willingness from most members on the commission, to see that ordinance really be enforced. And it certainly doesn't seem like it has changed. It's still in the 20s. I live on Meridian and 17th. I mean, I see homeless people sleeping every day on Lincoln Road. And it certainly seems it's the same people over and over. And Jane, I mean, she messages, she says that there's the same person in front of her building for 20 years, sleeping.
We do know that that guy hasn't been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
We do know that, right?
So I understand that the 28 that the arrests were made was part of an operation, correct? Are there any plans for more operations?
So we actually continue, Patrol actually does operations nightly. During their overlap period, they're out on the beach side, and that's where the majority of those arrests are being made during that operation. Or they're in the parks. So from a homeless resource perspective and maybe services, the goal is to address homelessness. We utilize this new revised ordinance as a tool, just like we use other ordinances and other means as tools to address homelessness. The notion that we don't make arrests is not accurate, and particularly homeless arrests. So from the same time period that we're using, from October 1st to April 13th, we've got a total of 2,351 arrests. 869 of those arrests are homeless. So we're looking at about 38% of our arrests being homeless arrests. That's unheard of in any other place. And I can tell you that because my team has traveled. We speak at other agencies. We go to other organizations. We've traveled the nation. Just looking at best practices. Sometimes we take the things that we do here that work best and teach other agencies. And while I'm there, I learn from them. And we go back and forth.
I understand the argument that, it's a tool, and that we are making significant arrests of homeless people. But as you just saw with Commissioner Magazine, I don't think we should have an environment in our city where we allow certain things to go unpunished or unenforced, where ultimately then you're getting held up at gunpoint. And so what I'm saying is, if we were really vigilant on enforcing this no camping rule, Miami Beach will be known across the world as we are taking matters head on with the homeless problem. and really discouraging these transients that come. I mean, this gentleman came from Texas or Alabama with intent to either rob or kill. You know, if Miami Beach had really strict laws on camping, maybe that individual wouldn't want to come here, because he knows that, you know, eventually if I'm going to be sleeping on the street, which is the only place he was going to be sleeping, people are going to, you know, the police are going to wake me up and ask for my ID, and I'm not going to have an ID, and then, you know, I'm going to have a gun on me, and there's going to be an altercation. And so I'd rather just avoid Miami Beach because they're really tough on their ordinances. And so, you know, it's really the small wins that matter in situations like these, because if you kind of turn a blind eye to it, then you're inviting more, I guess, greater problems to occur. And, you know, when I see that there's only 28 arrests for sleeping, or the no camping ordinance, you know, that's a problem. I mean, it's been since October. I think we really need to take this seriously. And based on the last commission meeting, I thought we were very clear that this needs to be enforced more. I understand you think that this is a tool, but from up here, the electeds, we fully expect this law to be enforced. I don't think it was intended to be a tool in a toolbox to just be used whenever certain officers think that they can use it. I think it's needed, and it's needed now. So, you know, again, we want our laws enforced. Okay, we spend precious time up here debating ordinances and legislation, not to just have it being considered by whoever's supposed to be enforcing it. I think you know, the expectation is that we want to see this fully enforced.
Okay, Commissioner Magazine.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. Bear, thank you for that stat, and I hope that causes all of us to sit up. If we have, let's call it roughly 150 homeless people, just of our residential population, it's 0.176%, right, of our total population, committing 37% of the arrests. We have a public safety budget that accounts for 61% of our budget. Think about all the taxpayer money that is going to policing 150 people. Then if you extrapolate that even further to, you know, our residents and our tourists, call it 250,000 people, right? That the same 150 are accounting for 37% of our arrests. It's less than 0.06% of our entire resident and tourist population that are taking so many resources, impacting so many quality of life. So I'd like to refer this back to the full commission, but urge all of us to remain steadfast in truly, truly addressing this problem, because it's not just, you know, this homeless count. It is the resources that it is draining from our city. That is money that could go to schools, to parks, to our senior services, to our police, to free them up for other opportunities. So this isn't just addressing the homeless. This is truly a drain on our entire budget.
Thank you, and I'll second your item to send it to the full commission. I know that I've had many discussions with the current chief and previous chiefs, and part of the reason why the homeless find it so attractive to come to our city is because we have things that facilitate it, like packaged liquor stores, also places like Pizza by the Slice, and tourists, which give them money, and that's why they hang out in the tourist spots. Commissioner Bott, you have a comment?
I do. Just coincidentally, earlier this week, a resident called in about literally a tent camping on the beach around 63rd and well, on the beach around 63rd or so. And the response was, and through no fault of the officer, but the response was beach enforcement at night requires 3 officers, 2 on an ATV and a transport wagon for any arrests. It's manpower heavy. We only have 5 at night in all of North Beach. And you know, we're short, I think it's 28 officers overall. So, you know, we're talking about homeless enforcement in more concentrated areas on Lincoln Road where there's a big concentration, and on, you know, the parks in South Beach. But this is a problem that is going all the way up along the ocean, as you guys well know. Anybody who's done one of the walk-alongs and, you know, pre-dawn knows. So as we look at this and as we try to find solutions, let's not forget that there are other areas impacted where there's no possibility of enforcement because of the geography and the manpower issue, and staffing of only 5 police officers in all of North Beach overnight limits what you're able to do. So I just want to make sure that is captured in the conversation going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's such a great discussion because we do create these ordinances to be used as a way of solving a significant quality of life issue for our residents. Their quality of life are deteriorated on a daily basis by individuals who are urinating, defecating in public, showering naked in public, and it goes to the very dignity, the human dignity of our own residents who are exposed to this. And our commitment has to continue being compassionate towards the homeless, but being firm as well in our desire to uphold the dignity and the quality of life of our residents. Now, the fact that we've had 28 arrests, let me just walk this through, because the ordinance requires you to identify first whether the person is sleeping or not. That's required to be done on the recording. Is that correct, Sergeant?
That is correct.
Okay, so the person needs to identify themselves as homeless.
Yes.
And they need to identify whether they're sleeping or not.
Well, we'll see that as we approach the individual. We'll see whether they're sleeping or not.
Now, what the 28 doesn't quantify is the amount of placements, because the whole point of the ordinance is that if they reject placement, then they get arrested.
So we don't enforce that as an if or. So if you refuse, then you're going to be arrested. We don't do that. The 28 that we've done, we followed the letter of how the ordinance has been crafted.
What do you, can you explain that a little bit better?
So
because I'm losing. I thought it was that if and Rob, perhaps you could chime in and explain this a little bit better, because I may have been misunderstood. I thought if the individual is sleeping in public and identifies themselves as homeless and is offered placement in a facility that has a shelter bed available and they refuse that shelter bed, then they're arrested.
They can be, but the way that
they can be.
They can be. So the way that we're
but
doing
they're not.
this is,
So you're telling me that we're using discretion then?
We're always going to use discretion when it comes to ordinances or misdemeanors. That's completely up to the officer, and you've got to understand that when we deal with homelessness, we're not going to arrest our way out of homelessness. And I know you all have heard me say this before. You've heard it from other people. You're not going to arrest your way out of any situation here on Miami Beach or any other agency, whether it's drugs, whether it's homelessness. It doesn't matter. You're not going to arrest your way out of it. The way that the philosophy shows how to deal with homelessness is through a multi-pronged approach. We have arrests, we have services.
Sergeant, understood. Mm-hmm. But I actually then have to echo the words of my colleague, Commissioner Suarez. The City Commission has been so steadfast. Why pass ordinances that then we're going to be politically criticized for? And then I'm going to, I know for you it's a tool, but please understand, for us, these tools that we pass legislatively, they're liability for us as well. And if we are passing these pieces of legislation, it's because we expect for you to, thank you, Commissioner, for you to enforce it, to use it.
And we are.
Well, clearly
But
not. Clearly not from what I'm hearing here. Well, your discretion. That is very frustrating, because guess what? the resident that walks out of their apartment, their house, whose quality of life is being impacted by what they're seeing, doesn't have the discretion to unsee what they saw. Commissioner Magazine doesn't have the discretion to go back in time and not have a gun pointed at him. It's the reason why we've created these pieces of legislation. And I believe 100% in officer discretion. But what you're telling me is that the message of the city commission has not resonated and has not been, I understand the whole point of discretion. But to me, it sounds like the discretion is outweighing the will and the direction that the city commission wants to go in. And that to me is concerning. That to me is concerning. I 100% support officer discretion when there is the opportunity to turn someone else's life around, where there is the opportunity to get someone into shelter placement, into job training, into a drug remediation program. 100% support you and your fellow officers in using discretion in situations like that. But the discretion can't be what we revert to. In my opinion, if we've created this law, is for it to be enforced as the standard, not for the discretion to be the standard. And if someone is rejecting placement into a facility, and I got to tell you, for me, it was very difficult to sponsor that legislation, because I began my public service 22 years ago with Camilla's House, assisting mothers who had formerly homeless children in transitional housing. That's where I started my public service. And so for me to come in years later, now as an elected official, and to pass legislation saying, if you reject services, we're going to arrest you, was not an easy decision. It was not a decision I made lightly. But we've come to a point in our society where you need firmness in addressing this issue. And we can't just revert to officer discretion outweighing the will of the city commission that has passed this legislation. And Assistant Chief, I see you there. I don't know if you want to chime in on this, but for me, I find it frustrating, because it sounds to me that what was the will, the direction that this city wants to go in, is not being implemented.
Vice Chair.
Before our Assistant Chief speaks, I also want to reiterate that, I think there was a number of 150 homeless people. That's not true. I met with Alba and her team, and last year I wanted to know how many unique encounters of homeless individuals in the city of Miami Beach, and there was about 1,300. Correct. So there's not 150. That's just, that 150 is some snapshot of us going out in a day and trying to count as many homeless. But if you really want to know the numbers, we had 1,300 unique encounters last year. And it hovers around anywhere from 1,000 to 1,300 from the data that I got. But I think we're losing sight of the fact of what is the intent of this ordinance. The intent of this ordinance is to encourage the people that really need help.
Exactly.
And the people who don't want help, we want to discourage them from being here. Because ultimately what ends up happening is what happens to one of my colleagues. And, we are being very clear that we fully expect this ordinance to be enforced. Okay? The 28 homeless arrests, that was part of a single sting operation.
No, it was not.
Well, and that's just reported by the Miami Herald.
We're telling you right now that it was not, and I just told you that it was not.
Yeah.
So go on.
It's a
I don't want
culmination.
to interrupt you.
It's a culmination.
Okay. So, was there ever an operation where there was a bus where the Miami Beach Police and housing came out and they did an operation to look for camping individuals?
We do that every Wednesday. We do a detail every Wednesday where we work with homeless outreach, we work with code, we work with sanitation, and we go out and then we address those issues. So just this morning, your fellow commissioner went out with the team, and there was a person that accepted services. So they typically have a van with them. We go out, police are there for safety, for their safety, and we engage folks. We do it along the beach walk, we do it along Lincoln Road, in different areas of the city where we've identified homeless encampments, people that are gathering.
Yeah, and my last point is, was it the majority or almost majority of all the crimes committed in Miami Beach are by homeless people?
A lot of crimes that are
I think
committed
it's
by-
the majority, correct? So if the stats show that the majority of crimes are committed by homeless people, why would the police department not really focus in on homeless individuals in Miami Beach and really throwing everything that they can to address this problem? You know, I think that the no camping ordinance is so unique because a lot of these homeless people think that whenever they pitch a tent or they sleep on a certain corner, they own that corner. It's theirs. No one can touch it. But when the city comes and we say, look, this isn't owned by you. This is public right of way. You're not allowed to sleep here. In the back of a mind, when someone's basically telling you that this isn't your property, you can't sleep here, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go somewhere else that will, I guess, be more accommodating, like Broward County. So.
And we do that.
I do have a question, Sergeant. So the camping ordinance has had 28 people since October 1st get arrested. How
Since
many
the beginning of
accepted
the year.
services?
So since the beginning of the year, 28.
28 since the beginning of the year. How many have accepted services? Because if they accepted services, we should know that number as well, since they weren't arrested because they accepted services, which is part of the approach.
So I believe Alba has.
So we have 49 after-hours placements that have taken place since the beginning of the fiscal year.
So that
After
kind
hours
of
is
adds
by
to the
police.
28. We really should hear both numbers because they weren't arrested because they accepted services, which meant that we got them off the streets. Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez?
I was walking Lincoln Road the other morning, and I was at Euclid Circle, and there were no less than 4 people sleeping right out in the open, passed out across Euclid Circle. And I felt at that moment that nobody's going to Euclid, you know, we're not there. Because if we would have been there, they would have been in shelters. You know, so I don't understand how they're sleeping there if somebody walking the beat on Lincoln Road. You know, and they were sleeping there on the circle, and I said to myself, even if we had like a sprinkler system to make it unattractive or like what, because it ruins the whole vibe of it looks awful.
Well, Commissioner from Magazine had made a motion to bring this to the full commission, and I second that motion, and we need to close this out from the committee.
Thank you.
Okay,
Madam
the next
Chair,
item is number.
I just want to please, discretion is important, but just keep in mind that the intent of this ordinance is to be able to get people into services.
We understand.
And if someone is rejecting services, that arrest mechanism is there with compassion in mind, to get them, to encourage them as using that extra tool to get them ultimately into the services they need. And I believe we've even had a certain level of times when people in court have agreed to enter services. So please, let's not just revert to discretion.
Thank you. Okay, number 19, we're moving on. We're moving on. Number 19.
Number 19, discussion regarding the efforts of police department to combat illegal drug
Bless you.
dealing in
Bless
the
you.
city.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, so this item has been on since 2022, and I know that in 2023, there was an operation with the state attorney's office on drug dealing specifically. I also know from conversations with the chief that discussing things in detail are not something that we want to do because then the bad guys are going to hear about it.
You just said everything I
But
was gonna
I
say,
know that
ma'am.
high level, you can tell us a little bit about this, and then we can close this out.
Well, this is Lieutenant Ozeda. He's in charge of our street crimes unit, of which, as you all are aware, there's a large undercover component. And yes, Madam Chair, like you stated, I plan to just stay at the 30,000-foot level and really just say that, yes, there are operations that occur, but we're not going to discuss in a public forum, what we do, when we do it, how we do it. Obviously, that is individually an open invitation if anybody wanted to know a little bit further, but that would have to be done privately. But Lieutenant Ozeda is just going to take you through Operation Lucid Air that we did conduct in conjunction with the State Attorney's Office, which netted quite a few success. And it's something that these are the kind of operations that we like to do. They're long-term, they're resource-intensive, but I think they are successful. And before he
Thank
starts,
you.
I'm just going to say, I was just recently in Portugal a couple weeks ago, and they have a street that's very similar to our Lincoln Road. So I can, as a tourist, being in Portugal, I kind of understood how when tourists come here, how they could feel, because I was solicited in every corner for some kind of narcotic. So we take it very seriously, and we know that it's occurring, and we definitely want to do all that we can to mitigate that.
Thank you, Assistant Chief. Lieutenant?
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see most of you again. And hello, greetings to the ones I don't know. Yes. Operation Lucid Air was conducted September of 2023. It was in partnership with the State Attorney's Office, and it was conducted in the ADCD, the Art Deco Cultural District. It was conducted between the hours of 11 a.m. and 1 a.m., which were the prime drug dealing hours. It was conducted over the 4-week period of September, and it netted a total of 49 felony arrests, 4 misdemeanor arrests. 11 of those individuals were with warrants. We also recovered a total of 117.6 grams of cocaine, 1,356.5 grams of cannabis, 10 grams of OxyContin, 6 grams of MDMA or ecstasy, 46 grams of psychedelic mushrooms, $8,484 in cash, and also we netted 2 convicted felons in possession of firearms.
Lieutenant, are there any plans to do an operation similar to Operation Lucid Air this year in conjunction with the State Attorney's Office?
We're working on it.
Okay, great. Any comments from the committee?
Just a quick question. Wait, this is my item, and I would just like to speak on it. It's okay. I was gonna pull the item yesterday because I thought, oh, we've done this sting operation, but then I called a couple property owners on Ocean Drive that said very much so that there are still drug dealers on nearly every corner. So this sweep can't just be a one-time thing, because as soon as they see that you're not there, they just go right back out there. So I'm really happy that we were able to do this operation, but we still have that problem. And I spoke to 2 different property owners on Ocean Drive that confirmed that. So, I know you want to close out items, but, and I haven't walked Ocean Drive. I would love to, I'm going to walk it myself, actually, today. I'm going to go undercover, okay?
I'll go with you if you like.
Okay. Greco did give me a commissioner badge. Take my commissioner badge. Just kidding.
Well,
I'm
thank
making a
you, Commissioner
commissioner's arrest.
Gonzalez. And actually, this item was minors,
But-
not yours.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Are you sure? I thought
Yes.
that this was my item.
No. Commissioner Bott has a
Oh,
comment.
wait, can I finish
Yes,
my item?
yes.
I'm not, my item, my
Minor's item.
comment. Finish my comment. In a few days, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna walk it, and, and listen, I'm really glad that we finally figured out a way to finally get the drug dealers off, but I just want everybody to know that the problem is not solved. It is something that is ongoing, and it's, I don't know how you guys are gonna fix it if they keep coming back. Once you clean it up, you gotta keep the officers out there, and right now, I've been there a few times. It seemed like it had improved to me. I don't live in South Beach. If I did, I'd probably be walking Ocean Drive more often. But I think it should be some sort of recurring update that we get.
Well, they can't give us an update on these operations. I would prefer that either it's an LTC or individual commissioners get it, but in a public forum, we're not going to get information until way after the fact. So I don't want to keep this item on here. But before we close it out, Commissioner Bott?
So, there are obviously other hotspots that could use this sort of attention. So as you're planning, whatever your next steps would be, the Altos Del Mar area near the public restrooms and the playground, the alley behind, that runs parallel to Normandy behind Bob's Your Uncle, some of those pocket little parks up in North Beach along Bay Drive, those little pocket parks. So I know you guys know all this, but I just want to remind you, like, Ocean Drive is great because it's concentrated and it's operationally easier because resources can do more in a more efficient way. But there are these hot spots that just need the same kind of laser focus. So throw that into your operational hopper, if you will, and I would be most appreciative.
Understood, Commissioner. Every city resident is just as important as every other one, I assure you.
Commissioner Magazine.
Thank you all. And like I said last time, you all, our PD, is the eyes and ears on the ground, and that makes you the inherent experts on this. And this cannot be an item placed solely at your feet. I appreciate the good work that you're doing, but I would urge, whether it be the command staff or your everyday beat cop, reach out to us if you have ideas, what you need from us, especially from a legislative idea, right? This isn't just a one-way street. As you're all going out here, I think you've, especially since this new commission has been elected, we haven't been shy about the type of city that we would like to see. You're the ones that are out there doing that. We can't put it all at your feet. So if you sit there and say, you know what, we see what you want, this is what we need. These are the legislative things that would help. We're not the experts. You all are. So I implore you to come to us and say, these are the tools and resources that we need, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to number 3.
Item number 3, discussion regarding police calls and services associated with public safety concerns at hotels and hostels located in neighborhoods that are predominantly residential, such as South of Fifth neighborhood or West Avenue neighborhood, including code enforcement issues relating to the city hostels and hotels located in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. This is an item from 2022. Major Robinson.
Good afternoon, Major Ian Robinson. I'm in charge of Uniform Operations Division. So yes, from what I see here was first heard in June of 2022, and since then land development regulations have been amended to prohibit certain types of transient uses in both neighborhoods. So I can tell you that I do have some figures here. They were included as part of the documents. Anecdotally, from what I heard, what I've heard and on the radio, I listen to the radio every day, calls for service have gone down in these areas, especially the Bikini Hostel. Had a lot of issues way back when. I haven't heard anything significant happening.
Is the hostel south of 5th still open?
I believe 15 south of Dade, 8 of 53% are in the ADCD, 1 on West, and 1 in Sophie has closed.
I thought I had closed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Debbie?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I think at the last meeting in 2022, you asked for a planning update, and we've also, in addition to prohibiting the apartment hotels and the hostels south of 5th and on West Avenue, we have also passed incentives to convert existing uses, even existing uses that wouldn't be permitted today, but they have the legal right to continue to operate. We've passed incentives for FAR and height. 2 FAR questions actually went to the voters and were approved for South of 5th to convert transient uses to purely residential uses.
So thank you. So I think with the closure of the hostel south of 5th, with the LDR amendments that have been made since 2022 when this item first came up, there have been measures to improve, and the numbers have gone down with the Bikini Hostel. With that, I'd like to move to close the item out. Are my colleagues in? Okay. So we'll move on from that one. And Stephanie, you'll keep me informed if there's any public comment. We're going on to number 5.
Okay, item number 5, discussion item concerning the manner and mechanism in which the city residents can obtain updated information regarding the pending status of criminal offenses prosecuted by the state attorney's office.
And this is an item from 2021. Hi,
Hello.
How are you?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Eric Garcia, Major of Tech Services.
Yes, back in 2021, there was a lot of conversation about getting some data going. This particular item, if I remember correctly, was addressed at that time. I remember being at this meeting, or this might have been a virtual meeting, was addressed by the city attorney's office in conjunction with PD. And at the time, I think what we agreed to was to include it on our department website, links to the clerk of court website where you can find the most current information on
Is that
current
separate from
and closed cases.
miamibeachfl.gov?
So what we did was we put it on miamibeachfl.gov. If you click on the PD.
I'm going to open it up right now.
Yeah, on the police department, and under services.
Okay, so would that, I guess it would be under City Hall? And then under police?
Under
Okay.
police, when you get to the home screen of police, there's a section called services.
Let's see. I don't see it. Let's see. Can you try? miamibeachfl.gov. Oh, at the top. Yep, I see it.
right on the top,
Yep, right at the top.
services.
Okay, yep. Okay, go on.
And then if you scroll down from here, if you scroll down from there to criminal court hearings.
Okay, so click on that.
So this section will, has a bunch of links to the clerk of court's office. Now, since this item came up, I've checked all these links, and I'm gonna be updating some of them, because some of them have been, some of them are outdated. So these will be updated in the next few days or week to have the most current links to the clerk of court.
Okay, but in this situation, in order to find out, you would have to have the name of the person that did the crime. Mayor Minor was the sponsor of this item, so I'm gonna recommend that this go to the full commission so that he could tell us at the full commission if that was the intent for somebody to know, or if he wanted actual reports that the police would give, not something that we would need to look up. So are you guys in favor of sending this to the full commission, and then Mayor Minor can address if he wanted this, if this is what he envisioned, or if it was something different?
Okay. And who's the second one?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. Okay, so we'll move that one off, and then to the full commission. Item 24.
Item number 24, to discuss new strategies and more efficient allocation of police resources for traffic control during peak traffic periods.
Okay, and this was Mayor Minor, Commissioner Fernandez, and Commissioner Magazine. Since Commissioner Magazine is on the committee, I'll ask you to tee this up.
Yeah, thank you for all. You know, one of the things that we've all heard as one of the most pressing quality of life issues is traffic and traffic control. It's also a public safety element, you know, where our city becomes so jam-packed, especially at one of the causeways. If there's an accident, it's essentially diverse traffic elsewhere in the city. How I'm envisioning things coming from New York City, popular block-to-box programs, understand that we are somewhat circumvented from quote-unquote red light cameras, but until we get more technology-specific resources, having traffic control, especially in some of our hotspots like 17th and West Avenue and Alton Road, entering the Venetian along 41st Street, just as a way to really help facilitate traffic flow. And one of the most crucial ways of doing that is making sure that commuters, especially from the 4 to 7 p.m. periods, are not blocking intersections that essentially circumvent the free flow of traffic. So I'll hand it over to the police to give us an update on their efforts, kind of where we were, where we're at now, and where we'd like to go.
Major Robinson.
Thank you, Major Ian Robinson, again, Operations Division. So 100% agree with you. When there is a backup by 995 because of a crash or some big event happening out there, eventually it will move on to the Julia Tuttle, onto the MacArthur. That eventually transitions over to 41st Street or 5th Street, what have you. I will tell you that currently, and I think you were provided the maps as to where we put personnel from 4 to 6:30 at night. We have 16 posts within our city that are currently being manned by police officers Monday through Friday. Their exact purpose out there is to try to keep the box clear, to allow traffic, if it's totally blocked up westbound, to continue north and southbound traffic. Little update on our PSSs. There are 9 hired. That's coming along. I think we have to hire 1 more. There's a little bit of a training period that they have to go through. And then eventually they will be deployed to those locations out on 41st Street as part of their regular schedule, as well as out on Belle Isle, because we control traffic out there, as well on 17th and West and things like that. I want to let you know that I had a discussion based on this item with Lieutenant Carpenter from the City of Miami. A while back and before COVID, they had something similar that you just mentioned, like you saw in New York. It was basically traffic control specialists who were standing on the corner in downtown Miami who would assure that the box was always clear. That was going along well, although there were some problems with it. They were part-time people. They were having a problem finding people. There were some pay issues going on there. It worked for some time, then they were having a problem with hiring. These people, when I say these people, these public safety specialists that we're hiring on board here, it's not going to look like that. These are full-time employees who are going to be doing other things during the day within the different areas, non-priority calls for service, until it's time for the afternoon rush.
So I'm thinking of this almost like through the chair, almost like a park rangers program for traffic, where they are not full-fledged police officers, but they're the eyes and ears and specialists on the ground. Instead of being dedicated to monitoring parks in these specific parts of the day, they will be solely focused on monitoring traffic, but it doesn't come with the same maybe costs or a full background in training as a full-fledged police officer does.
Correct. Yeah, it's a lot less than a police officer is. They're called public safety specialists. They have enforcement capabilities when they arrive on the scene of an accident. They can write a parking ticket, things like that. They can't stop a motorist for blocking the box or whatever. Now, could they say, hey, you got to go straight, or you got to make a left, or whatever it's going to be? They'll have authority to do that. But the answer to your question is yes.
Co-sponsor Fernandez, did you have anything on this item? Okay, Commissioner Bott.
I just had a question about the map that you included. There's nothing north of 41st Street, and I want to make sure that that stays top of mind. We've already addressed the bridge issues at 63rd Street, but we have 3,000 residential units coming on board in North Bay Village over the next few years, and 13 new buildings in the 71st Street 8x6 square block circumference in North Beach Town Center. It is already an unmitigated disaster up there anyhow, and as each of those projects comes online, I don't even know how to fix that other than building hovercrafts or buying hovercrafts for everybody. But if it's not in here for purposes of this discussion today, but you have those, I'd love to see it. But if they're not in here and they're not planned for, we need to have a conversation about that, because that 71st Street, Indian Creek, Dickens corner is a disaster, absolutely disastrous. So maybe we can have an offline conversation to be prepared and not get caught behind the gun on that. The other thing is, Eddie will laugh at me, but that's okay, I'm used to it. In Japan, and it's a very different culture where people are orderly and follow rules, but they have these lovely police folks who stand on little stools or whatever, they're better than stools, but little kiosks, and they literally have their little white gloves and they direct traffic. And I know it's a different culture here. This would be a prime target for drivers. Like, how many of these people could we knock off in one day? But my understanding is that a lot of the officers who are here now are to help with the signalization and stand by the box itself to help change the lights when needed. And I know I don't want to put anybody at risk by standing in the middle of the intersection, but sometimes, talking about being in New York, we've all had the gruff police officer like, what am I, made of wood? You gonna hit me? Doing their best New York tough guy thing, literally confronting drivers who are acting like jerks. So again, don't want to put anybody in harm's way, but sometimes it's going to require people getting away from the box, or not just leaning on the car to show a presence, but to actually engage
Thanks.
with the drivers.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and then we'll move this item to the full commission.
Just curious, how does the new traffic control center on the mainland coordinate with the the new officers that we're gonna, or not officers, but the personnel?
Yeah, that's, sir, is transportation. I'm not sure if they're still here or not. But we would ultimately work in conjunction with them and our Arctic when that's fully on board. And
Good afternoon. So the Traffic Management Center that is co-located at the FDOT District 6 facility, currently the way that it operates is there's constant communication between the monitors, the traffic monitors, which are contract personnel, our police department, our communications department, FDOT, and the county to identify issues and then see what could be done to mitigate any traffic impacts. So first and foremost, what's important is to identify what's going on. If there are cameras, we have cameras. If there are cameras at the location, we can see what's going on. Our traffic monitors can see. If there are no cameras there, then that's where a lot of the communication happens. Our traffic monitors contact police, fire, communications division. They ask for any intel on what's going on. Police sometimes goes out there. It depends on the nature of the issue, but there's a lot of back office communication that's occurring between our traffic monitors, police, communications, FDOT, and the county.
Has the program started?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so let's bring this item to the full commission, and I'd like to move to add streets north of 21st, as Commissioner Bott mentioned, because I agree with her. There's a lot of scary things that are coming down the pike with these enormous projects. And Indian Creek and 71st Street, and some of those are problems. So when you bring it to the full commission, include those. Is there a second on this? Okay.
should I add the white gloves? No, I'm just.
Yeah.
Any color you like.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so item number 7.
Item number 7 is to discuss a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of Miami Beach, Florida, directing the city administration to publish monthly reports on the official City of Miami Beach Police Department's webpage, setting forth the statistical data pertaining to crimes reported and arrests effectuated in the prior month, sorted by area of the city in which the offense was committed for any felony, misdemeanor, and/or city-county ordinance violations, and further directing the city administration to publish such monthly crimes and arrest data reports on each PSNQLC agenda in conjunction with presenting such data at each meeting.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an item that I had placed last year on the agenda to enhance the transparency of crime in our city and the work that our police department is doing for the benefit of our residents. And one of the frustrating things for me is when our residents don't have an actual source to get this type of data as to the safety or the activity that's going on in their neighborhoods, and then they go into other websites that might have unofficial information that does not relay the true accurate data that our residents deserve when they're looking into the statistical information as to crime or arrests happening in their neighborhoods. The police department got this resolution and put themselves to work with our IT department. And if you allow me, Madam Chair, I'd like to recognize Officer Rodriguez, who's here today to present the product of their work.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. I had to look at my clock. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Assistant City Manager, and all. So as the commissioner mentioned, this has been a long time coming. I believe when I was looking at the research since about 2023, I think some items, there was multiple iterations of what we wanted and what we wanted to see. At the direction of our current chief, we kind of fast-tracked the result and what you're going to get a preview of today. It's been a very collaborative process. It's all of us here at PD, specifically our technical operations unit, Major Eric Garcia, who oversees that unit, and his team were an integral part of it. I'd be remiss if I did not mention Frank Quintana and his team, who were again, an instrumental part of this information. I'm pleased with the product. Commissioner Fernandez got a sneak peek of it yesterday. Commissioner Schwartz, you almost got to see it, but we wanted to save it for you for today since we know you love data.
And easels.
And easels, yes, as you said. So I don't know if we can, if PJ can show the screen. There's going to be 2 dashboards, and by the end of the week, we should have a letter to commission, which will have links to these dashboards. These will be on our police website as well. And it really is an effort to promote transparency. And what we're pushing out, I don't know that there is any agency, or at least any agency nearby, that's pushing this type of information out as quickly as we are. So we had the direction, of course, from the City Commission to compile this information. We took it a step further. This is an interactive interface. It's a Microsoft product, Power BI. The first that you're looking at is, it's called a daily arrest dashboard, which is automatically populated with the arrest from the previous day. So I'll give you, in the interest of time, unless we want to go into deep detail.
And, this is reminding me of the item that we just heard that I sent to the full commission that Garcia was talking about. And I was like, I don't think that's what Mayor Minor wanted. I think this is what he wanted.
Well, it's exactly, and since there are 2 sites, it's taking the best of what everyone wanted. And again, we took it a step further because it's not just a daily arrest. People are going to, as you'll see when I'll quickly show you, people are going to be able to drill down certain dates, get the information by the patrol areas, which you see here on the left-hand side. We broke it down in plain English: South Beach, Mid Beach, North Beach, the entertainment district, and then you have a other category because if an individual is arrested, for example, at the jail facility, there's always issues as to why the address won't populate. Automatically, when a person opens up this dashboard, it'll populate to yesterday, which I don't know if you see my cursor here. So the information the person sees, which in this case is a total of 16 arrests, it's all for the previous day. And again, it gives you the analytics that you could see: arrest by patrol areas. It even tells you by hour, and the arrest by the primary charge. That's important to note because I certainly don't want anyone to think we're misleading. This information is given to us by the county. It's a ThinkStream arrest interface. So it's the primary charge that's on the arrest document. There are other charges very likely that are associated with that individual person as well. And you also have the heat map that shows where it's at.
Vice Chair.
Through the chair, thank you, Madam Chair. Is there any traffic data on there? Citations for speeding, reckless driving?
On these dashboards?
Yeah.
No, on these dashboards, this one is the Miami Beach Police Department Daily Arrest Dashboard. And I know you're very excited, but once I get to this next one, it'll be the monthly crime incident dashboard, and that'll have those incidents. Perhaps your suggestion would be a new type of dashboard that we can publish, and our police chief is very, very big on transparency, promoting that type of stuff, so it's...
Right, I think because once you have sort of the infrastructure for this software, I think it's easy as just you plug in, you maybe have another dashboard for speeding, or you have a drop-down that says, not speeding, but traffic citations, UTCs, right? Would that be possible to also integrate into this?
It would be possible to, I don't think integrate into this, but we have access to a lot of information. I know we've spoken at length about, previous information we've shared, and those Excel sheets that we've shared with you have been because of this type of data that, as I refer to, very verifiable data that Frank collaboratively has worked with us. So I think the answer is yes, but
Good morning, Frank Quintana, CIO. So we warehouse all of our public safety information in our data architecture. So to your point of having that information available, as long as it's something that we're actively tracking or that it comes out from our dispatch center or our arrest records, we would be able to build something specific to that. A lot of these dashboards are specific views into a particular need. It would be impractical to have one dashboard with everything just by volume, right? So if there's something that we want to do that's more specific towards speeding or a subset of that information, that is something we can absolutely work towards.
Perhaps like DUI, speeding, reckless driving.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with you if you would like to get some of those requirements of some of those areas, as long as it is something that is specifically identified as DUI, speeding in the system, we can pull that up.
and the big picture as well, the overall traffic enforcement. You know, our cops work diligently throughout the year, throughout the day, throughout, you know, every day, 7 days a week. And although there may not be a particular set of citations, the enforcement is certainly there. Is there room for improvement in any situation? Absolutely, and that's, as a modern police department, that's what we always strive to do. And again, transparency, that's the most important thing, and context when we're sharing this information. That's what we strive to do, and we'll continue to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez.
Again, I want to know if we can just simply implement some, key points of traffic data, speeding, DUI, reckless driving, and if we can just implement that and it's not a big deal, that'd be great.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great points by the Vice Chair. So let me just follow up on that. Because as it relates to, for example, crime, the crime portal, the dashboard that we have there, criminal versus non-criminal traffic matters. I would imagine DUI being a criminal matter. Would that appear under the dashboard?
On this dashboard, you're saying an arrest?
Mm-hmm.
If the individual is physically taken to jail for the criminal offense, yes, it would appear here. If the individual,
But that would have to be the primary offense.
The arrest record, the way that it comes to us from the county, will only show the primary offense on the record. So to the point that was made earlier, if there is a list of offenses, it'll only report on the first one. And that is a function of the way that the information is delivered to us through the integration we built with the county from their system. They will list a primary one regardless of whether there were multiple ones or not.
So there's times when DUI perhaps might be the primary, and other instances in which it won't be the primary, in which case it won't be reflected on the dashboard. And perhaps in a situation like that, perhaps what the Vice Chair is referencing perhaps as something just separate as for the metrics of traffic matters might be something fruitful for the future to consider.
yeah, and I just want to clarify though, that arrest itself would be captured. Now, would it be necessarily right here as DUI? I can't say 100% that it will be the first one, because it depends on how the officer is going to write the report. You know, they may write the report, list the charges in sequential order. It really is up to that officer, but the arrest itself would be there. And as we had touched on yesterday, this is an effort to share information with the community, but I think a key component of this also is to not lose that connection with the residents, with each of you and the individual area captains, your aides and the area captains, with the command staff of the department, so we could really drill down, get you more information, because again, information is limited, but we want to be able to provide that bigger picture and give you full context.
And thank you for that, because this can certainly be a tool, as you well mentioned, to facilitate conversation between area captains, the neighborhood resource officers, neighborhood associations, together to better understand. Not that I myself, I'm going to go in and see data here and say, okay, there was there was, you know, an incident here in my neighborhood. You know, what do you guys, why don't I see more police present? It really is to understand, okay, what does this mean in the bigger picture? How do I work with my NRO, with my captain, to, you know, to understand, were there more officers, you know, sent to an area? What is the plan to mitigate a specific trend that might be identified now through this data, which is the great thing about having this type of visual. And I do want to commend both the department and the IT department, the police department and the IT department, Frank and Officer Rodriguez, because it truly is so much more than what any other city provides. You see what other cities provide. Number one, it doesn't have the level of update. It's almost, some of this data is almost real time, if not by a few hours delayed. Other cities will just give you a monthly chart. And this is so much more than a chart. The breakdown by the type of crime, by the area, by the time, and giving you that visual of the heat map and being able to zoom into it. It really is something so much more sophisticated than what I have seen any other city provide. And so I truly just commend you guys for listening to this request that we place on the agenda on behalf of our residents and thinking about the transparency that our residents were asking for in its implementation. It really is much, much appreciated. And what I'd like to see for the future, start thinking, how can we overlap this data? Is there that possibility to get, okay, there was crime, but overlap the crime data with the arrest data, to then have the more complete picture of crime and arrest. And let's start studying that and see if there's that possibility for the future.
Thank you. This is great
Thank you.
stuff. So really appreciate that. We'll move on, close this out and move on to number 8.
Item 8, discussion regarding services offered to inmates at the time of release from the TGK Correctional Center and public transit bus passes provided by Miami-Dade County.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an item I placed on the agenda back in 2022. By the way, there was a misprint on the item, and I think it got corrected on the sponsor of the item. But this is an item I placed on the agenda in 2022 because we often talk about the revolving doors of justice. Our police officers are on the streets. They are encountering dangerous individuals on a daily basis. And then these individuals get arrested. They get booked into a place like TGK. Sometimes they get released very quickly. And they're given a bus pass. And it's not that they don't deserve that bus pass. But the problem that I have is that the buses that go in front of TGK mainly go east. And one of those bus lines is a straight line. You look at the Route 36 bus, runs right in front of TGK. It actually almost ends right at TGK. And it's a straight line up 36th Street, over the Tuttle, up 41st Street, looping up Collins Avenue, and right around here around 17th Street and Lincoln Road and the Washington Avenue area. The areas of our city where sometimes you walk Lincoln Road east of Washington Avenue where this bus goes, it's some of the areas of our city when you see the highest concentration on the amount, for example, of homelessness. And it's not to say that these individuals don't deserve a bus pass, but is a bus pass back to our community or any other community the right thing? Or would it be more appropriate to be speaking with Miami-Dade County and other agencies to determine, is there a way that when an individual is released from jail, that we offer them a bus pass that gets them to facilities within the continuum of care? so that they don't have a place to go. They don't end up back in our streets, back in our neighborhoods. They go somewhere where they can get services. And by the way, the frustrating thing about this is that there's a direct line connection between TGK back to Miami Beach. But people coming out of that jail might be people who may have been arrested in Homestead, may have been people arrested in Kendall, may have been people arrested in Miami Gardens, may have been people arrested in Palmetto Bay or Cutler Bay or other parts of Miami-Dade County.
Vice Mayor?
But the lines running in front of TGK isn't taking individuals back to those communities. The line is back to Miami Beach. And we need to fix this, and we need to fix it yesterday. And so I asked the support of this committee to explore what options we could do, how we could better work with Miami-Dade County in fixing this, and not just saying, okay, get rid of the line. Well, no, what are the alternatives that we can offer to solve this? Thank
Okay,
you,
Vice
Madam
Chair Suarez.
Bus pass to New York City.
I really want to thank Commissioner Fernandez. Thank you. And it's crazy that this has been on since 2022. And we're finally getting, and thank you, Madam Chair, for finally putting this on. Because, well yeah, I mean, it just makes total sense that why are we allowing this to happen? Or at least not having some sort of discussion with the county on this. The fact that there's a fast track from TGK to Miami Beach is ridiculous. I mean, they should have a fast track to the nearest community center where they can get services and help, like Camilla's house. And so, what can we do?
All right, so Major Robinson and Albatare, if you wanted to address these items.
The young lady can go before me if she'd like.
Thank you. So Albatare, Office of Housing and Community Services. I can't speak to the bus line, but I can speak to what is currently occurring at TGK. The Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust has dedicated discharge planners and an MOU with Miami-Dade County Corrections if a person identifies as needing housing assistance. So this is on the homeless front. So if a person self-identifies and says, you know, I am homeless, I don't have where to go, there's someone there available to them to help get them to that community center and get them tied into services. So that's what is currently happening today.
That's just for the homeless through the
Correct.
charity. Okay, but what about just your people who committed serious crimes?
Criminals.
Yeah, criminals.
I'm sorry, what's the question, sir?
So like, let's say they're not homeless and they're just criminals, and the standard protocol is to give them a bus pass, and then they get on the bus and they come right to Miami Beach.
I believe that TGK is, she might have mentioned it before, goes through some sort of process under their roof. Hey, do you have a means of transportation? Do you have an Uber? Do you have money to pick you up to take somewhere else? If not, they give a bus pass. I think the answer to your question is yes. Technically, they can get on a bus wherever it might be in the county, whatever bus line they're going on, whether it's the 36 that comes into Miami Beach or whether it's the 125 that goes to Kendall, whatever. I think the answer to your question is yes. If they get out and they don't have any means of transportation and they get this bus pass, they can go wherever they want. And one of those locations is Miami Beach.
Okay, so Vice Chair, would you like to bring an item to the full commission with a resolution urging the city, urging
this is my
TGK
item.
not to offer this?
Well, that's.
I know, but you can't make the motion.
Yeah, he can move my item if he wants.
Right, but,
Yeah.
I'll move Commissioner
Okay.
Fernandez item.
all in favor?
We'll co-sponsor.
I will.
Any
if I
And
could
I'd like to
just-
co-sponsor that.
Yeah, I'll co-sponsor this as well.
Excellent.
Commissioner, through the chair, if I can.
Yes.
Fantastic item. I had no idea that this was occurring, and I think we should also have an alternative, rather than just urging TGK not to do this. I'd expect to get pushback on that. So let's all kind of brainstorm on other possible solutions. People respond to incentives. Perhaps we have our own program that provides an incentive for them to take the bus to Broward or wherever it is that's not Miami Beach. Their legislators can do what's best for their city. But I don't think we're going to have much luck with TGK. Perhaps we can work with the Homeless Trust or things like that. It's a fantastic thing that you've highlighted and probably is a huge source of some of the issues. But we have to have a kind of multi-pronged approach and
Right.
a number of different solutions if this isn't accepted by TGK.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 6 in the
Madam
interest of
Chair?
time.
Just, may I make one quick suggestion?
Quick.
Can we not, if they're criminals, which is different from a homeless person, do they not have an address of record? And why couldn't we just require TGK to send them back to wherever their home address of record is? So if they were arrested in Miami Beach, then they can, and they're residents here, then they obviously can come home here. But if they are residents of somewhere, Doral or Hialeah or wherever, then they have to go back to those places. Why couldn't that be a recommendation?
Let's bring this up again when it's at the full commission. We've now moved on to number 6, but thank you, Commissioner.
So we're doing an
Okay.
urging. Is that what we're doing?
It's going to the full commission
With an urging, to do an urging to
with
the
an
county?
urging and alternatives, for them to
Okay.
provide alternatives. Okay, number 6.
Okay, number 6, discuss weapons detection system at alcoholic beverage establishments.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to defer to the city attorneys on this item.
Well, this item we previously discussed, and the city commission authorized the mayor to send a letter to establishments on Miami Beach, urging them, if they're an alcoholic beverage establishment, to have a metal detector and to use it. And we cited all the reasons they should do it and all the safety standards that sort of suggest that they should. And so that letter was sent out by Mayor Gelber, I want to say about, I don't know, about a year or two ago. We don't recommend doing more than that at this time because of the various preemptions involved, including preemption on regulation of firearms, which has very draconian penalties if you do legislate in that area. But we are doing, we are constantly looking at everything that we can do, both to make our alcoholic beverage establishments safer and other places where metal detectors might be useful, such as City Hall and such as the facilities here. So, I would, I guess, urge you at this time just not to take any further action on that front and to continue or to close the matter.
Commissioner Fernandez, okay to close this out?
I just want to understand better, what did the city of Orlando do? Because the city of, my understanding was that the city of Orlando had successfully.
The city of Orlando created an incentive program whereby they rolled back alcohol hours to I believe midnight, and then issued a late night permit to 3 a.m. if I'm not mistaken. If you and you got that incentive if you met various requirements, one of which was if the bar had a metal detector. And so it was an incentive rather than a regulation, and that was how they sort of skirted around the preemption. I will say that that has never been challenged in courts. We don't know how a court would rule on it, but assuming that what they did was legal, which we do, we give them that benefit. You can always offer incentives to do things that are preempted, and so at the time, I believe the direction was that we didn't want to open up an alcohol hours discussion, but if there is any thought from members of the commission about an incentive that could be offered to incentivize bars to have metal detectors, that would be something that you could clearly discuss, and I think you would be within your rights to offer.
Commissioner?
We can close it out.
Okay, so we're closing this out. Thank you for the explanation. And now we're moving on to our second to last item, you guys. Item 21.
Item number 21, discuss take action and authorize administration to implement new Florida law for double fines and towing within special event zones during spring break to the fullest extent permitted by law.
Madam Chair.
This had 3 co-sponsors, yeah?
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Magazine, you were one of the co-sponsors.
Yes, I think, and we'll discuss this more at length tomorrow for the spring break meeting. Not getting in the middle of that discussion. I think this was a great tool in our toolbox. Again, a multi-pronged approach between our great participation from law enforcement, legislative issues. One of the things was just the messaging that we sent. It was helped by a viral campaign, but part of that was, yes, come here if you're doing things the right way, but it's not going to be easy to come here and kind of park in our garages and use that as your kind of base camp to sit there and drink out of your cars and cause trouble and not contribute to our economy and things like that. So these are just tools in a multi-pronged tool belt that I think provided us, in part, a great and successful spring break campaign that we're going to look to build on.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Your co-sponsor, anything you want to
So, you know, I think when we doubled the towing fines, maybe Eric can come up. It was no added value to the city. I mean, meaning the city never got any of the extra funds because we doubled the fines, correct? Is that because of state statute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, look, I think, like Commissioner Magazine said, I think this is a great tool. But I think what we've, and not to get ahead of ourselves for tomorrow's meeting, I think one thing that we've really realized is messaging is key, right? I mean, messaging really set the stage for this past spring break. And, you know, for you know, and just an idea, if you know, maybe next spring break we say we're gonna triple the towing rate, and that message gets spread far and wide on social media, saying, "Oh man, if you come to Miami Beach, you're gonna be paying close to $750 for a tow." That's really gonna discourage a lot of people from doing what we don't want them to do. So I think again, this is a great tool, and we'll discuss it more tomorrow.
Commissioner Fernandez, you were one of the co-sponsors. Did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank Commissioner Magazine and Commissioner Suarez for joining me as a co-sponsor of this item. When I sponsored the creation of the special event zones, it was in response to Florida statute sponsored by one of our state senators, Ileana Garcia, who designated this piece of legislation to specifically address those individuals who are committing non-criminal traffic infractions. Yet they're dangerous. They take over our streets and they impact the quality of life of our residents. My understanding was that the double towing fees was as a result of the state law. It may also be related to our high impact ordinance. So that's something that we should look into. But earlier I was just going to suggest, you know, let's just defer this item as part of the discussion that's going to happen at our special meeting, just for the sake of time.
So what I would like to do is close out the item, since
Yeah.
we will be talking about
Yeah.
it. So let's do that. And then the final item, number 18.
Item number 18 is to discuss potentially extending beach hours for the monthly North Beach Full Moon Drum Circle.
And Commissioner Magazine, you were one of the co-sponsors. That you want to tee it up?
Yeah, I've seen both online and getting feedback from residents. This is a great community event, and the best way to ensure that it remains not only a positive activation but continues to grow, from the feedback that I've seen, is extending the hours for that. There seemed to be a will and desire of the community to do so. Haven't received any negative complaints. We'll keep our eye closely on this because we don't want it, conflicting with residential quality of life, but this seems to be an event that's embraced by the community. So this is really just adhering to our constituents' wishes.
Great. And Commissioner Fernandez just pointed out that he was the prime sponsor. Would you like to share anything on that?
I think Commissioner Magazine covered it well. It's just creating an environment where we are welcoming to activities that our residents enjoy, and identifying the schedule. Let's identify the schedule of times when it would be appropriate to extend these beach hours to accommodate this activity. Have we-
And one last.
I'm just wondering, has the department identified those dates?
Yeah, so from now on through the end of the year, if we're only talking about weekends, Friday night,
Right.
Saturday night, we're just talking about 4 more instances where it would be extended. So the cost incurred in the overtime would be de minimis.
And I'd like to allow Commissioner Bott,
Oh.
who's one of the co-sponsors, to also speak on the item.
Shockingly, I have nothing to add on this.
Vice Chair?
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but, you know, we have sea turtle season now,
Yeah.
nesting season.
I was gonna bring that
And I think we should be very mindful of what we're gonna allow on the beach when, you know, these nesting sea turtles are gonna be coming back. And, I mean, the Full Moon Drum Circle's is a pretty cool event, but I also know that there's music, there's lights. And I really don't wanna see a situation where a nest is hatching and there could be 200-300 hatchlings that come out and they just get trampled on by drum circle.
So Commissioner, I can say that we've been staffing this event, I want to say 15 years. I mean, it's been a long time. I think the first time I was a captain up there, we were staffing this. And I can tell you in the entire time, I've never heard of an issue of one of these nests being disturbed. Now, what I was going to bring up was just, first of all, bonfires are prohibited on the beach unless there's a special event. So if there was any special event permit
So I guess-
mechanism that was going to be used for this, that I was going to remind people that we are currently in turtle season and that's not
Yeah.
allowed.
So my
Bonfires.
only issue is, I mean, I've seen some of the drum circles, they do bring their own lights,
Sometimes.
right? And, you know, I'm going through great pains, almost on a weekend basis to address the lighting concerns along, in Miami Beach. And if we finally have a dark beach where sea turtles are not gonna be disoriented, you know, you're gonna have a situation where you have bright lights on the beach for public safety reasons, for example, and a nest hatches, it could be seen almost, I don't know, half a mile away. So, you know, a half a mile either north or south, there's a situation where sea turtle hatchlings can start walking toward there, and they're very small. It's it's really it's easy to miss, and you know, when people are, you know, inebriated, they're having a good time on the beach. I don't know if that sets up the right precedent for our natural habitat. And so what I'd like to do is I'm okay with extending the hours, but not during turtle season.
Turtle season ends October 31st. How many of these are within turtle season?
Two. June and July are weekends. And then November and December are the other 2 weekend days.
The
where they would be extended.
recommendation,
So maybe we give them an extra during outside of.
the sponsors are okay with this, is to move this to the full commission with extending the hours except during turtle season.
So that would impact 2 weekends.
So, but let me just ask.
Sure.
Because what we're doing is we're extending the beach hour.
Right.
We're saying, okay, instead of closing at 10, we're gonna close at 11. Before, the beaches used to be open till midnight, and then our colleague brought an ordinance and amended it to 10 p.m. So we're saying that we're prohibiting the activity before 10 p.m. because it's already dark. By 10 p.m. it's already dark. You know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you know, heading into the 10 p.m. hour, you know, it's already been dark. So I don't, you know, understand the difference between, you know, allowing it to 10 p.m. as opposed to not allowing it to continue to 11 p.m. And so I'm just wondering about that. So you were mentioning with the special event permits in the rest of the city. How does it happen with the special event permits in the rest of the city?
Well, no, I just was pointing out that with a special event permit, you could apply for a bonfire as long as fire is involved and
Okay, got it.
approves. What I was saying was that during turtle season, even with a special event permit, you're not allowed to do the bonfires.
The bonfire.
Correct.
But like, for example, there are events that occur on the beach. You know, sometimes special events, people come with the tents, they set up certain lightings. do we allow those on the beach during turtle season?
I don't know the answer to that.
And I see Francis from our tourism.
And we've already, Commissioner, I've addressed this with tourism, that we will not be allowing any bonfires or special lighting during turtle season for their permits.
Okay.
During turtle season.
Okay, and because perhaps that's one of the things that we can adopt with this, is making sure that there is enforcement during turtle season of, you know, the issue of the lighting and the fire, because, you know, okay, fine, we don't have to extend it to 11 p.m. during turtle season, but you have all the time before 11 p.m. And, you know, you still want to make sure you're enforcing the issue of the fire and of the lights that could disorient.
And Commissioner, if I may, through the chair, Francis Viacio, Tourism and Culture, we do have special events during turtle season, and all the events are vetted through our environmental and sustainability department. And events do get restrictions on all things on lighting, on what they can set up, so they do get vetted during turtle season for the extra regulations.
Okay, so, I mean, perhaps what we should do is, and my suggestion, and I'm not a voting member of the committee, is instead of saying during turtle season, we're not gonna continue it to 11 p.m., you know, perhaps allow it to continue towards 11 p.m., but just, you know, we need to have this enforcement, the enforcement of the light and the enforcement of the fire.
Yeah, and through the chair,
Yes.
and you can speak to code. I mean, I've been going out almost every other weekend and addressing lighting concerns for turtle season. I started it back in January because I wanted to get a head start on this. And I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to want to talk to tourism and really curtail all events during sea turtle season that have anything to do with lighting or noise on the beach, or that may affect the beach. And so, you know, this is I'm a very passionate guy when it comes to sea turtles, and you know, I'm going to be the sea turtle guy, if you will. But like I said, you know, with the drum circle, you're gonna possibly set up a situation where you have a group of people dancing, drumming, bringing lights, and that's going to be very disruptive for sea turtles. With, I would say, a half mile or maybe even a mile radius north and south on the beach. And so, you know, in the summertime, it gets dark. It starts to get dark around maybe 9, right? I mean, like, not start, but it gets pretty dark around 9 in the summer. And, you know, 10 o'clock, when the beach is closed, it's perfect. Extending it a little bit more, it's really an issue because sea turtles usually hatch right after dusk. And so, you know, I want to just give our natural habitat the best chances of survival, you know, considering there are so many other challenges that they face in Miami Beach. And so, I will second our chair's motion to exclude the 2 weekends during the turtle season. And while at the same time having other enforcement measures for lighting and sea turtle conservation. Do we need a vote on that?
And if I may, through the record, as mentioned earlier, these activations have been going on for years. They do not go through the permitting process.
Right.
Through the special event permitting process.
Yeah, as far as the bonfires goes, it doesn't get approved through us. The only thing that does get approved through us is like fire pits and open fire pits, but we don't accept any permits. We actually had one put in and we denied it through turtle season.
Good.
So turtle season, yeah, it's through May, but we acknowledge it here in April.
Great. Do we need a vote?
So you're moving that
You-
item
you-
to
Yeah.
full
you have a-
commission?
you have a
second-
motion and
I
a
second your-
second.
I
Great,
second
all
your
in
item.
favor?
Aye.
Did you have a question, Rob?
No, I just said you need a vote.
Okay. I think that was
Thank you,
the
guys.
last item. Thank you, everybody. We got a lot done, yay. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Well, before 2 o'clock.